Just a moment here. At this time, I would like to call the Custer County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. It is Wednesday, June the 21st at approximately 9 a.m. in Wetmore. Who would like to lead us in the pledge?
Wilson Jarvis.
How about leading us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would the clerk please conduct the roll call?
Chairman Catman.
Present.
Commissioner Hood.
Present.
Commissioner Prince.
Yeah, present.
County Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
Board Secretary Lori Vistadow.
All right. And do we have any amendments to the agenda at this time?
I do.
Okay.
Recommending the internet provider that's desperately needed, so if we can add that to the agenda.
Okay. Are there any other
I have none, sir.
corrections? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
I'll second. Commissioner Hood seconds it. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is accepted as amended. We'd like to have the audience introduction, please. We do this so that we do have a record of your voice, so later on we can identify who is talking. And let's start over here with Brenda.
Brenda Gady, Assistant to the Board.
Jackie Bugos, Sentinel.
Wilson Jarvis, Economic Development.
Martin, Wetmore resident. Peggy Martin, Wetmore resident.
Courtney Davenport, Wetmore.
Dan Davenport, Wetmore.
John Johnston.
Thank you very much. We have, next item on the agenda will be approval of minutes on May 31st and on June the 8th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as stated for May 31st.
I'll second the motion.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And the minutes for June the 8th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as stated for June 8th.
I'll second the motion.
Moved and seconded to accept the minutes of June 8th, 2017. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have a public comment period at this time. We do have a relatively full agenda, and as you know, we have some exciting things this afternoon. I ask that we not be overly long. Does anyone have any public comments at this time? Wow. I think that's almost a first.
I have one.
Yes.
I would like to thank these two gentlemen for their amazing work over the past months. This has been a full-time volunteer job for them. And I want to thank them with all my heart. I don't know what the community would do without them.
I would like to make a motion that the Board of County Commissioners formally thank Mr. Davenport. And what was Alden, or who else were we pointing at? Alden? Mr. Gray?
Well, and I'm going to add Nan.
And Nat. And anybody else, we appreciate all the efforts.
Absolutely. This would not have been done without the amazing work from you folks and so many others within the community. And we really appreciate it. You took it to heart. You took it as your center, and you really did it well. And we thank you very much, sincerely.
There's a motion out there.
Yeah, so you're going to second the motion?
I know, I'm waiting for a second.
I'll second it.
And I will accept the amendment as proposed by Commissioner Hood. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much, and we do want that to appear in our minutes. Thank you, John. Okay, attorney items. No, excuse me, commissioner items. Do you have any commissioner items?
I do. On June 13th, the Tourism Board met and we actually voted on the vendor that is going to maintain and update our website. So we're happy to report that. And as you can see behind you, we now have a place. This mural was actually posted in the Colorado Springs Airport. And we now have a spot for it here in our community center. So all is good there. On 6/14th, I met with Jeffrey Wood of CSU, architect, and 3 students. We worked continuing on the DOLA grant that was actually, it began its administration last year with KIT, and we had a workshop in May, and Jeff came down with 3 students, and he worked with Shannon at the sheriff's office and with Cindy at SAR, and they'll be coming back to assess our county courthouse. So we're on track with that, and we're looking forward to the information that they're going to give at the end of the assessment. On 6/15th, I represented the commissioners in a really neat exercise conducted by Public Health Emergency. It was a dispensing exercise and went 2 hours long, and I know Brenda was a part of that, and we had various organizations of our community to help. What this was an exercise where the county, along with other counties, were given a scenario of an instance, an outbreak, and how our county was handling it. And it was pretty neat. And there's going to be a follow-up report from our nurse, public health nurse, and Beth Green, who was the incident command officer. Cindy Howard took a big part in that too. And it was a pretty neat exercise, and I just want to publicly say that I'm proud of our community and everybody that took part in that, because I heard through the grapevine that day that our community was one of the top ones with how we conducted ourselves. So very proud of that happening.
What was her outbreak? Excuse me for interrupting.
The outbreak, I've got a whole, John, I can share this with you. There's 2 pages. The outbreak was, let me find it here.
Some kind of novel respiratory virus.
It was a public disease outbreak. The incident happened and originated on I-70, and let me just find the exact thing. The purpose, okay. This was a full-scale exercise that occurred between June 15th and the 17th, so the group also had to administer reports through this period of time. The purpose of the exercise was to test the state and local strategic national stockpile plan. And this was a contagious respiratory disease. Okay, so it was pretty neat. It was just a really
It was
neat
almost a
exercise.
pandemic type exercise.
Yes. Yeah.
And some of the, if I may add just a second, I've also had some conversations since the exercise, and I understand that this was a statewide exercise for emergency management and for public health. And I've heard indirectly that Custer County may have been the top county in the state.
That's what we heard.
We had 28, I think, people in our command, in our response system, and that was way more than much larger counties with much bigger infrastructures had. And the responses that we had, the questions they asked, some of them that I thought were rather certainly very appropriate. We try to identify this by, and you both were there to help me, but we try to identify some of these by geographical boundaries. As an example, we say Custer County. Well, those folks in Gardner may very well be coming to Custer County for inoculations or whatever. The same is with the Boy Scout Ranch, as an example over here. The Boy Scout Ranch is in Pueblo County. but their ingress and egress is from Custer County. So that group, even though they're in another county, may also. So the numbers that we have potentially impacted is much greater than what would show as a static population of the county.
Well, I'm also happy to add to that because the incident was happening in real time last week, we were the only ones initiating the fact that we've got events and a big tourism group that comes in for 6 months. So we take pride in also including those people, the out-of-towners. If there's an incident, what are we going to do with those also? So we took the lead in tourism.
We also, as a means of, for some other purposes too, but we've had Brenda Gady go through some public information officer training. And do you want to make any comments? I understand you were fairly busy through this time period as a result of inquiries.
Yeah, there were just some things that we identified, like I did not have a laptop, so there were people asking for stuff via email, and I had no way of doing that, so that was one of the things we identified as a need for a PIO officer.
Also, Donna Hobby was present,
Right.
and she needs one too. And it was also mentioned that between the three of us, we need to keep close tabs on who's going to be in the county because of the financial decisions that could possibly be made. So we just need to keep that in mind, and you can always call in, but you never know if communications are down, that's an issue. So two of us need to make those important financial decisions moving forward. But it was
And again, that's in the best of conditions. There's times that we may have to have someone act on our behalf, or we authorize someone to. If we're, to expect two of the three of us to be in the county all the time probably is not a realistic expectation. Okay, excuse me, go ahead.
That's okay. On 6/19, I actually appointed what I'm going to call the Communications Committee. We met Monday morning at 10 o'clock. That committee consists of Cindy Howard, Sheriff Shannon Byerly, Chuck Iapolito in the capacity of IT, Donna Hobby, Finance Director, and myself. And we actually reviewed, and I'll have the recommendation that the committee has for the internet provider that we've had workshops on and various discussions. Really good conversation, and of course the committee is keeping in mind the significant savings to our constituents here in trying to provide, number one, the best service for public health and safety. Communications, I just want to let everybody know that our phone system is a dinosaur. And in reviewing this, the goal is going to be to downsize the amount of telephone numbers that we have in our county. If we can move forward with the proper phone system that we need, we can really downsize the monthly cost of what we're spending for voice, let alone data. So on the agenda, I'll tell you what we're going to recommend for that service. And then yesterday, 6/20, I know that Wilson was a part of this, several of us from the Tourism Bureau, and Wilson representing economic development in the chamber. We had Dark Skies, Clint was there. The Colorado Tourism Office came down, and we had a great discussion for about 2 hours, and they were informing us of various grant programs that are available, not just for nonprofits, but for private businesses regarding agritourism. So we received, I think, a lot of good information yesterday. More to come from them. So that's my report.
Great, thank you. Since the last meeting, I met with the Early Childhood Development Council. We had an excellent meeting. It's moving forward. Money will be available, and pretty soon they'll be announcing that we'll have assistance for moms and children birth to 8 years old to help them move forward in their life and kind of get the start that helps children throughout the rest of their life. I met with planning and zoning multiple times over a very significant unsafe condition, what appears to be an unsafe condition within the county, and we're strategizing what's the best way to handle this. It's an actual home that is that I'm referring to, not a structure. I met with the sheriff and the undersheriff about the same issue multiple times, and we kind of have a game plan working. I met with the airport. We have an issue. We finally got the fuel dispenser in, so the airport should be able to dispense fuel. Unfortunately, there are some electrical issues with the fuel dispenser that they're diligently working on to get resolved, and at the moment, to the best of my knowledge, as of yesterday, I don't know if it's fixed yesterday evening, it's still down and being repaired. And we also we have this ongoing issue, and since it's in our packets, I'll just bring it up. An owner of one of the hangars at the airport, maintenance inadvertently hit the side of his hangar, caused some significant damage. I've been dealing with this for several months now, and people are saying you must submit an estimate on the cost of repairs. We finally got that. It's just around $1,000. I just saw that this morning, so I haven't had a chance to speak with Dallas about it yet. But I think he and I and the gentleman who owns the hangar all agree that it is the airport board's responsibility to repair, and when it comes down to it, I'm going to make a recommendation that we approve the expenditure to do it, but we're not quite there yet, so I want to make sure that everybody's on board before I bring it to the board for approval. And that's what I've been doing. I've been staying real busy. Yes, sir.
Question about the airport. The fuel problem that they had, I know that there was apparently a NOTAM was not issued for that problem.
Right.
And we had pilots flying in here expecting to be able to get fuel, and then they couldn't get fuel.
Right.
Is there something in place now to be
Yep.
sure that the NOTAMs are issued?
I'll address that. I received a notification right around Memorial Day from Mr. Bogle that his son flew in anticipating being able to purchase fuel. And I'm not a pilot, I don't understand, but apparently there is a mechanism that pilots can look to see at airports they're going to what service is available and what were not. For whatever reason, an error was made and that information was not posted on this specific pilot information service. I talked
Notice to Airmen.
I'm sorry?
Notice to Airmen, it's called. Yeah,
Thank you.
NOTAM. Yeah.
Thank you. I immediately took this up with Dallas, who took it up with the people in charge, his committee. It was rectified immediately, and an apology was sent to Charles Bogle and his son about the problem. It was significant. Heaven forbid they would have flown in and had no fuel to get out. Could have really been serious. We skirted the bullet, but the way I looked at it, it was a human error that was fixed, and I think the repercussions will hopefully keep it from occurring again. So that's the outcome of that.
If I may comment on just a second, too. The situation occurred, and we recognize that it did. At the same time, pilots are usually very cognizant about how much fuel they have. You don't get down to the last gallon, being sure that there's something there. You always have an out. And we're only a short distance from the airport in Walsenburg. So even in fact that there was limited fuel, it was a problem that he wasn't notified, but from the same time, as a good practices as a pilot, there was an alternative that he was able to utilize.
Yeah, and I think he would, obviously he did.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, it's...
Yeah, he is a good pilot, so.
But it's one of those things that happen, but at the same time, Just like me driving down the street, I expect the next gas station to be open, but it might not be, even though it said they were, or they'll be out of fuel. So, it's interesting you brought up the airport hangar, and we can discuss it later, but we've been dealing with this since I took office. This was Commissioner Butler was the airport representative, and someone was mowing out there. I don't want to identify the person, but they backed in the corner of the building. And at that time, we said, we'll get an estimate, we'll get it fixed. We had authorized it to be done. And this is an example of a little thing that just kept hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. So we've had previous discussions prior to these folks coming on the board, fix it. And it's not a very big deal. It's just a corner of the building, been some tin. But I agree with you. We need to get it done. Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. Couple of things. I attended the Democratic dinner not as a Democrat, not as a Republican, not as an independent. I attended it as chairman of the Board of Commissioners. They invited me to give a brief update on the state of the county. There were probably 40 people in attendance. Was well received. The exciting thing that happened this last week, and I want to allude to this in another area in just a moment, but we had Senator Coy Gardner here at his request. He arrived on Saturday morning, and we spent 2 hours going through the Junkins fire, looking at the dangers here in the creek, looking at South Hardscrabble, looking at North Creek, looking up at the Mountain Meadow, all the way down to McKinsey Corner. We had a very fruitful 2 hours, I think. We had some Forest Service personnel to answer technical questions, and then the other people, Donna and I were the two commissioners. Jay was previously committed. And I had Chad Draper. All of you folks know Chad from down here, rode with us. And we talked about the issues that the ranchers have faced where we've had fence lines burned up, some of these other things. The message that was the takeaway message were two of them, and I've been assured there will be follow-up from the Senator's office. As you remember, we've told you several times while we're working with the Corps of Engineers, we're working with a geological survey. Everybody promises, nothing's been done. So the Senator indicated that he would be happy to make some phone calls in Washington because we critically need some monitoring equipment up here on the hill. We just can't wait until we see what happens. I think we watched the radar and some of these things, folks, but I'm very uncomfortable yet. We've had 2 flows come down. They haven't been catastrophic. That first one, was because of melt, and the second one was we had about, as near as the Weather Service could tell me, we had about 0.8 of an inch of moisture fall up on the burn scar, and you saw we did have some runoff. Or down here, we did have a fair amount of, some of you wondered why we have South Hardscrabble closed. There were a number of areas there that we did have debris across the road. Some areas it was fairly deep. On the bright side of this, the Senator also, I thought, was very supportive in other comments and issues we talked about. And Donna, do you want to add anything to that visit?
I just really appreciated spending the 2 hours that we had because we talked on a number of topics while we had him captive. So I'm glad, and he was taking plenty of pictures, so hopefully he's got enough ammunition to get us the money that we need.
This leads me to a second item, and I'm somewhat embarrassed by this. All of you know that we did have a shooting incident in Arlington, Virginia last week. And after that occurred, I got a phone call from the Senator's office asking that we provide security. So we did have a deputy sheriff deputy sheriff accompanying us all the time we were on this tour. It bothers me to think, as a citizen of Custer County, that we've stooped so low that when we have the state's of U.S. Senator visit us, we have to be concerned about his security as we drive around the country, around the county. But this was very real. He was concerned. I appreciated the concern. And the Sheriff's Department did provide a deputy, and we did have security. But it's kind of surprising, and I'm going to go on just a minute, I guess, but it bothers me that we've reached this point in our county where we have concerns about public official safety. Some of the rhetoric that I heard from the state Democratic office at their meeting via internet was very divisive. I've heard the same kind of rhetoric from the Republican side. And I hope, folks, and I've said this before, but I hope we can come together as a county and quit being so divisive and see what we can find to throw rocks at each other. But let's see what we can find in common. I think we have a lot more in common than we have in differences. And it bothers me when it reaches clear down to Custer County, all the way from Washington, D.C., as a concern for public safety. Having said that, I thought that the tour, as you said, went well. And another rumor that I've heard is coming about on Thursday is a call to Kathy Garcia in Senator Gardner's office that the NRCS, National Resource Conservation Service, is supposedly going to approve some funds in 2 weeks for us to do something down here on rehabilitating some of the fire areas. It'll be private land based. I'm not sure if it's part of the EQIP program that NRCS has, or if it's part of the Emergency Watershed Protection Plan. But apparently we thought this was dead, but apparently we have something that's starting to move from that standpoint. And they're not here, but I publicly want to recognize our 2 county employees down here, Larry Haynes and Kevin Day. For you, my colleagues, and the rest of you, when we had the first high water down here, they were out after midnight pulling debris out of the culverts up here on 390. A caveat to that, our county road boss, Gary Hyatt, looked at it and watched the weather and felt there was a concern. The backhoe was actually in the county shop having some repairs made. He rushed those repairs and postponed some repairs and got that backhoe on a trailer and got it hauled down here that day, so it was here that night to use. And I think that's very proactive planning and an attention to our situations by our road supervisors. And the road crew again had to go out the other day when we had high water and pulled some more debris out of that culvert up there. So as an example of 2 county employees down here that have certainly saved us, I feel anyway, saved us a washout on a road. So, and that's all that I have. Do you have any questions for us on our reports? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, excuse me.
I wanted to add one thing. You were talking about, the rancher and the mitigation on the Junkins fire. I think that we need to take a look, or maybe get something in here to take a look at the ditches, the irrigation ditches that have been washed out, headgates blown, headgates completely impacted with debris, and a lot of the ditches that are veered still go back to the Mason fire, still that far back. Those ditches were never recovered because of the fire and the washouts.
I agree with you in this. I don't know what this funding is going to be from NRCS, but it could very well, potentially could incur some support to do some structural repair and maintenance. We don't have a big enough need down there to qualify for state support. We've been we've been discussing with the governor's office. There was about $21 million appropriated for the 3 fires, roughly, in that category. And our share looks to me like, for the share of the state share of the fire, will be probably somewhere around $5 million. And that leaves about $1.5 million left over we feel, for recovery. And that could be an area, if we can ever get that broken loose, and we have been all the way to the governor's office, and we have met with the lieutenant governor, and we're getting ready to rattle the cages again. But there was some funding there that we feel all 3 fires, the Beulah Hills fire, the Hayden Pass fire, and the Junkins fire, all 3 fires were recognized and had separate declarations of emergencies, and then this funding pool was approved for those emergencies. So we're still working on it. One other local item that I have, it's been a couple weeks ago now, 3 weeks, I don't know. Wow. I attended the Regional Planning Committee of the Colorado Department of Transportation, and it's interesting how such an august group that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Maintenance doesn't know what construction's doing, and construction doesn't know what maintenance is doing. And I had requested folks up here on Spring Subdivision, you know, as you, above the, well, about where Dale Place is there, that we make that a double yellow line, no passing zone, up to the end of that subdivision. Now it's a passing zone. And I've had requests from residents there that they pull out. They've almost had some collisions head on because cars coming down the road passing and somebody pulls out, and it's just not a safe area. And they assured me that they would paint it, take care of it, and I felt very comfortable until they painted it and took care of it, and all they did was repaint the old lines that were there. So the engineers assured me that they would also address that, and I'm still trying to get folks, I know it may inconvenience some of you, but I think it's important that we have a double yellow line up there as a no passing zone where you have those driveways coming out onto the highway. To me, that's much more dangerous than we have over here in Fremont County where we've got the crooked road and a misplaced bridge. And that whole area is a no passing zone. So if we have it in that area, it's considered a risk. I think this is a higher risk. So I'm still working to get those two lines on there. Okay. Finally got down to the windy commissioner. We'll go to the attorney now. Clint.
I have a few things to talk about. One of them is an agenda item, the cattle guards, or request for cattle guards on County Road 390. Marvin Boyd will be here. He's the property manager for Dr. Hamilton. I've spoken to Mr. Boyd about this, and Mike Halpin will be here, and his attorney Don Belville from Canyon City will be with him. And I did submit a memo to all of you as to where I think we're at on that, so you have sort of an idea of what the issues may be. But they'll be making presentations, and then I would request or suggest that no action be taken at this time, that we wait until one of our first board meetings in July and have an executive session where I can give you some legal advice on what your options might be. But that would depend on what I hear from these individuals today. It may not be necessary. I won't be present at the meeting on June 30th. You'll recall we had an executive session earlier this month where I reported on a security issue. And on June 30, there's a task force that's meeting in Fremont County. I need to be present for that meeting, and Sheriff Byerly is going to be there with me. So I will be at the meeting. We also have a presentation ceremony that was scheduled for that date, and we'll need to reschedule it since the sheriff is going to be involved in that presentation ceremony. Finally, I just want to talk for a moment, because there's a public meeting scheduled where the Board of County Commissioners is having a public meeting at Cliff Lanes Thursday, 6 p.m. to discuss or to seek public input about the issue of light pollution in the county. This stems from, it was scheduled as a workshop, but it really turned into be more of a public meeting back in April, where Jim Bradburn, as the president of Dark Skies, came in and talked about some things that he was recommending to the county. And then it was thing continued. But since then, things have evolved quite a bit. And I need to always make a disclosure that I wear two hats here. I mean, I'm the county attorney, obviously, but I'm also vice president of Dark Skies. I have an interest in this, so I always want to make that very clear. Jim Bradburn and Vic Barnes, the chairman of the Planning Commission, Jackie Hobby, Planning and Zoning Director, and I had a meeting, actually a couple of meetings, where we talked about the issue of light pollution and what could be done to prevent encroaching light pollution as the population of Custer County grows. And Jackie Hobby is the one that pointed out that there's already in the county zoning resolution language about light pollution. It's not something that's coming up for the first time. So we approached it from that aspect, and I drafted a proposal that, and this doesn't mean that it's been approved by Vic Barnes, obviously, but he thought it was in an appropriate position to present to you, to the board, and see if it's something you want to have available for the public at the meeting. if so, and I sent you a copy of that proposal, there was an appendix attached to it, Appendix J. I think that doesn't need to be part of it, but the rest of it, if you're satisfied with it, I'd like to have that prepared as a handout so the folks that do attend the meeting will know what we're talking about. Let's see. But I want to make it clear also that even though I've been involved in this in two capacities, for this public meeting, I will be there as the county attorney, not as an advocate. I'm interested in what is said, but I'm not going to be speaking out on behalf of this either way. I'm just there to listen as you are to see what the public has to say, and then at a subsequent meeting, you can decide how you want to proceed, if you want to proceed. And I know that there will be a number of people there to speak both for and against the idea of some further regulation of light pollution in Custer County. So that's what I had to report today.
Clint, I see no issue with being able to hand that out, which means I read that. I don't have any issue with it as a handout.
And again, it's a blueprint. It certainly is not anything that's etched in stone.
Right.
And for the folks that are here, the procedure would be if the Planning Commission if the Board of County Commissioners gets this public input and decides that it would be in the best interest of the citizens to go forward and explore this issue further, then you refer it to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission takes over at that point. They conduct their own public meetings and probably, I would guess, 2 or 3 separate public meetings to get additional input. They can take this blueprint that I've prepared and work with it. They can revise it, throw it out completely. Ultimately, they make a recommendation back to the Board of County Commissioners as to whether they think the zoning resolution should be amended to address this issue. And then the Board of County Commissioners, before making any final decision, would have another public meeting on it. So it's a long process with a lot of meetings, and the public will have every opportunity to speak. But I will, if that's acceptable, then to the 3 of you, I'll have Brenda go ahead and prepare sufficient copies to hand out to folks so they can see what we're talking about on Thursday evening.
I will concur with Donna. I read it carefully last night. I thought it was comprehensive, and I would have no issues with it being disseminated.
Bob, did you have a chance to look at it?
I did. I guess the only comment I have says a memo to the Board of County Commissioners. I think someplace on there it really needs to be kind of stamped as a draft. So it's very, very clear to those receiving it that this isn't something we've done. It's only a draft.
And I can certainly make sure that's, and then it will just be the specific language. I had some other comments that I made to use individuals, but what will be handed out to the public, that part won't be there. It'll just be the draft of the proposal.
Yeah, it just makes it, I think, a little clearer that we haven't done something without adequate.
And certainly refer to it as a draft proposal.
Good. Okay, anything else?
No, that's all I had.
He mentioned one item in his report, and this is just an aside. But we were in a meeting about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. We looked out the door, and here was the Pueblo Bond Squad out in front of the courthouse, and a dog. Well, the first thing we think is, what is it? Well, it turned out that there was actually I think an incident involving some drugs, that it wasn't a bomb initiative. But I assure you, as we sat there in the room, and you were in that room, I think, looked out that window and we saw that truck out there and the people going around, your first thought is, well, do we really need to be sitting here? And again, it seems so distant, but that's not any different than what the senator's concerns were. So again, we're looking at, I mean, it's terrible to have to do this, but we're looking at security for the county courthouse people. Okay, the next item I have on the business would be the executive session. Do we have any need for this today, or do we want to keep it open in case something comes up that we want to address?
I have nothing for executive session today.
I don't know.
Okay. Let's move on then to the new and old business. That CCI won't be here until 10:30. The cattle guards, I understand, will be late, will be coming in sometime. With the pleasure of my colleagues, let's move ahead to the courthouse security grant if we can, in the interest of time.
Can I bring up an old issue under old business?
Sure.
Thank you. As you know, we asked a couple of, I don't remember the last meeting before, I asked the planning and zoning, actually the planning committee, to look at building codes for the county. I've had several discussions with that. Public has commented on social media about it. Some negative, some positive, as you would expect. I would just like to kind of reiterate what Clint said about the light pollution issue. There is a meeting on June 26th at the courthouse to discuss this. It'll be from 7 to 9 p.m. It's going to be controlled because we want to make sure that enough people who want to voice what they have to say can voice what they say. This will be, just as with the light pollution, this will be a fairly long process with multiple meetings. I think it's important to hear from as many people who want to discuss this, and I'm anxious to hear back from the planning committee concerning what their recommendation is, which may also include this is not the right time or let's not do it, and that certainly is a viable option. So we're just going to wait and see where that comes out, but I did want to mention that. That is being pursued. Sir?
Is that at Commissioner's office?
That will be in the courtroom itself, so we have extra seating. And it's actually being held by the planning committee. I hope my compadres up here will be there to answer questions, but they're running the show. I mean, we turned it over to them and said we'd like you to look into it, and that's basically where it stands. I will say, wearing my hat as commissioner, I am an advocate of this, and I've spelled out the reasons why I feel it's appropriate, but I'm one person in the county, and it'll be a community decision, I assure you. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, ma'am.
I also have some old business.
Okay, these are things we need to add to the agenda when we add to it.
I thought about it.
Go ahead.
Just
Go ahead.
call
Okay.
procedure. I'm happy to do that.
That's no sweat. No problem.
That's no problem. I wasn't sure of the procedure because it was old business. I thought you'd just bring up old business.
Well, if it is old business, then we just put building codes under old business. Yeah.
I'll do it in the future.
Go ahead.
Okay. With regards to the underfunded grant that we have hanging out there, I finally made contact with Marty Galvin, who was above Lisa Rowe. We had a really nice discussion. Just for everybody's information, there is no time limit on that $145,000 that we have. However, they don't want it to hang out for 30 years.
Sure.
What is this grant for?
This is originally from last year. There was money that was granted to us to look at our courtroom, okay, because it's not sufficient for our needs now. So he needed to hear from a commissioner, and I was that commissioner, to move forward in using that monies for something else, because we had discussed possibly an entire justice center. So he now is bringing that to his board, and the only thing that they may request would be a minor amendment to our initial grant, which wouldn't be much at all. So I'm waiting for that board meeting to happen, and he's in close contact with me. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to date with that.
We have Mike who's helping, who's just joined us, and he's been very active in this. But we were identified a number of years ago as an area that our courtroom was but Mike, what's the proper word I'm searching for, Mike? I guess not secure. The security was not what the court wished in our courthouse for the courtroom and the justice. Is that correct, basically?
Well,
I know I'm catching you shorthanded here, but it was.
it wasn't that security was an issue, it's just that because of the size of the county, the population, and this certain set of criteria set up by the state judicial, Custer County qualified for monies through the court security grant to fund a full-time position and then add equipment as needed. And that's how we put in the security cameras and the panic buttons for the offices and other improvements that we've done. So just based on certain dynamics that they spec out for the counties, 4 counties in the state met all of the criteria to move up on the priority list. That's all it is. The monies are available to all the counties, but it's how they prioritize it. And unfortunately, Western County was one of those, so we were eligible for pretty much top-of-line funding for whatever needs we requested, and so far it's been pretty productive.
And this is something that we need to proceed with. I mean, we can't stick our head in the ground like an ostrich and hope it'll go away. So we were looking at adding on just for the court facilities, and then just as a secondary factor, maybe we're looking at building a justice center, which would be court facilities and sheriff's facilities, or building a new administrative building and making the courthouse only a courthouse. And the first study that we did was looking at the addition, and as Donna stated, we've got some concerns that maybe we're going to have to do more, and that's all it is this time. We're just trying to figure out the direction that we're going. Okay. Let's see. We have both parties here. Clint, do you want to lead this discussion, or you want me to? For the, I can lead it.
And that's fine. I think it's just.
Please feel free to.
If I have any questions, I'll
Interject.
certainly ask questions, but I've already spoken to Mr. Boyd and I've spoken. Oh, well, Mike, you waiting for your attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we'll wait. Excuse me. No rush. All right. In lieu of that, right now, let's move on to the court security grant acceptance. We have with us application for the court security grant, which basically funds a security officer to be in the courtroom and also functions as our security around the courthouse. This renewal of this grant application is very routine. And I would make the motion that we approve the pre-grant application form. Do I have a second for this?
I'll second it.
Okay, now let's get into discussion.
I have discussion. Is there any way that we could get a detailed description of exactly what that grant covers? Because I know you're part of this, right? Like what this grant covers.
It's interesting to me that they continue to call it a grant because it's self-funded now. When they originally got it started, there was grant monies available, but any successful grant continually funds itself, so they're not looking for outside money sources. So how this grant is funded is through any court case that goes through the courts in the entire state, whether it's county or district court. There's a $5 court security fund that is attached to the costs for the defendants if they're convicted or found guilty. And that's how this gets funded. And so that money goes into 2 separate pots. One is for positions, employees, and the other is for equipment. And that's kind of how that's funded. To answer your question, we can contact the state court judicial security administrator and get that. And I may even have a copy of the original wording as it came out.
Okay, we may have it filed in our clerk's office too.
It may be when we first did that.
And I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is we're looking at our personnel policy handbook, and we do have a section in there on security. And it was brought to my attention, asking really, what is your responsibility? And should you be there during normal working hours? Because we're looking at those hours, and should you be there 5 days a week? So I'm just bringing that up. I knew this was on the agenda, but I would really like some clarification on exactly what is covered under that grant, so we can have those answers for
Well, I
everybody.
think the sheriff could add some insight on that too.
Great.
But if I can add, I read this and I was a little surprised with some of the wording on the grant request, because not only does it authorize your position, but then it goes on to say, additionally, this may cover security equipment or measures that need to be addressed if approved by the committee. I read that as this is just wide open. The committee can choose whatever they choose to do with the grant, which I really appreciate if the grant is given that way. That way you have leeway to
This
use
is
the money.
I believe this is the state committee. It's the grant.
Right.
It's the Chief Justice's committee. It's not the
Oh, I
county
see.
committee.
I see. I thought this was a county committee.
How it works, if there's any equipment requests, so like the need for security cameras,
Gotcha.
like when I did that
Okay.
request up, it was presented, it comes before the board, and then it's signed by the chief judge, the sheriff. And so the court security team consists of one board member, one county commissioner, the sheriff, and the chief judge.
Great.
And
I just
all
didn't
those
understand.
people are aware of the requests and what it's going for. And if the governor will keep his hand out of the equipment fund, we can easily get equipment, but you gotta act fast.
I understand now. At the time, I was thinking maybe it was a committee that you had in the court. I'm with it.
And this is how we funded. It was interesting. We applied for the protective glass in the clerk of the court's office in two places, and we got it approved. So the glass, I think, finally come out of that separate funding to under the auspices of this grant.
Well, what's hanging also is a $7,000 request that the sheriff has in, and I also spoke with Marty about that, because that's been hanging out there, and that was a special locking system, okay, which actually can be utilized in other areas if we so need that. But we're still waiting for approval from them on that $7,000 request of the sheriff.
And I think also we need to recognize that this is, Mike works for the sheriff, not the county. So any positions and stuff, I think, would come forward from Shannon as a description. This is just a request of funding for a position in the sheriff's office. That's right, isn't it?
Right, it's actually kind of two different pots. So the court security grant only funds the FTE, the full-time employee. And then in the money pot, we'll just call it that, or the equipment pot, in October, I think that's the deadline for requests for, like last year, we upgraded the server and we added more security cameras. And we requested the glass, and we got approved for all of that. Now, some years, we'll make a request. The year before, we requested the security glass for the court clerks, and there was they didn't approve that portion of it, but they gave us like $4,000 for security cameras.
So,
Okay, is there any more discussion?
I'm good.
So you seconded, didn't you?
Yes, it's time.
Okay. At this time, I would like to call for the vote on the motion. All in favor? This is for the pre-grant application form for the court security grant, totaling $75,688. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, let's go right to the courtroom door. Donna, if you would,
Okay.
please.
I administered before you several quotes that have been in process. This has been a project that was requested to enhance our courtroom as it exists. Demolition, there's only really one area this can go in. Mike, you might be better at describing this than I, but we finally got an estimate from an insured construction company. That's been the issue in the past. So I would just like to make the recommendation that we move forward to have Justin Hutton, JDH Construction, new home and remodeling company, move forward. And also I would like to, we just had some plumbing work done, and there is additional drywall in the annex repair that needs to be done. And also we have a small concrete job, which this group can also do at the same time. So I'm just looking for approval to move forward with finally having this doorway so that our judges can come through a proper access, unlike what they have to go through now.
Okay, we have two proposals, right?
There was a third, but we could not find that third one that we had discussed on record. But it was also a consideration of no liability insurance on their part. This group has mentioned to me they just don't know what they're going to get into, that building. Once they start demolishing, they don't know what the structure is in the area for this doorway. So,
This is the annex?
no,
Oh, you
this
mean
is
in
the court.
The room is, now, well, I see you got annex stuff on here.
Yep.
And,
Nope. Nope.
There's no annex, this is all, okay.
No. I
Okay.
just mentioned while they're here that we've got a small drywall repair and some small concrete, that while they're doing this, we could add that on.
The bid is, this is from JDH Construction, to demo the brick. What we're doing, folks, right now, when the court adjourns, the jurors and other court personnel, with the exception of the judge, he can get out on his own, can he, or no? Yeah. No, the judge has to walk that hallway
They
too.
walk out into the public area.
So you walk out and they're all exposed to the public in a very small confined area. And we're concerned about the security of the jurors and the attorneys and the judge. We've had some minor issues in the past. So we're looking at cutting a hole, which would basically, and help me again, but will come through into the clerk of the court's lobby, right?
Right, there's a small conference room that's secured
Then-
in the court area.
And this would then allow for the judicial officials to safely exit
Yeah, they have
the bench
access-
area, which we can't do right now.
have access to the courtroom without entering the hallway and mixing with the general public. When you have defendants and they just been convicted.
And this,
We had a jury trial where the district judge walks into the public area and the jury room is 5 feet away and the jurors are trying to come up and have a conversation with the judge. And this door would eliminate that because then the judge can leave the bench, stay in a secure area, and go back into chambers and not be exposed to the public.
in the previous board, we identified this as something we needed to do, but we were having some cost issues. We've continued the efforts with this board. Do we need to read this into the minutes? Or just, okay. The amount of the bid would be $3,470. Okay, what's your recommendation?
I make the recommendation to go forward with JDH Construction to
Is that a
demo.
motion?
That's my motion. Yeah.
I'll second the motion. Do we have any other discussion?
I do, and that's why I didn't want to jump in a second. We have funding for the courtroom comes from the court authority, whoever it is that handles court. Is this not something that they would pay for, or is this something that is our responsibility? That's my only question.
Can't be used for capital improvements on government buildings.
Gotcha.
So any structure or anything, we try to do the same thing with air conditioning in there. But because it's not for, it's an improvement
To our building.
capital improvement.
Okay.
And that's why I think when this first came up last fall, we were looking to use out of the line item of capital improvement for the buildings.
Gotcha.
See, this is the confusing part because this is part of the facility.
I'm with
We
you.
have the underfunded, which is in the same jurisdiction, which will cover capital improvements if we make some changes to the rest of the court facilities, but not this one.
And just,
So this comes out of our capital improvement.
okay, and we have
And we
budget
have
money for
funding in there
that.
to do it,
Okay.
yes.
I just know, for the record, I will never propose something unless I have a discussion with our finance director to know where it's coming from.
I understand, but that won't stop me from asking.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bid of JDH Construction for the demo brick, build metal frame, install new door, patch drywall, paint, trim door, stain new door and trim. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And Donna, you'll continue on to Brenda Crank. All right. At this time, are you folks prepared and go ahead and proceed? I assume you're the attorney, sir?
I am.
Okay, I'm assuming I shouldn't be doing that, but
You have a tie and what more?
yeah, I mean, you look just like Jay, so both wearing ties. I figure he's both attorneys.
Your lawyer did.
Okay, who would like to be first?
I guess I would suggest, Mr. Boyd, you brought those. Can you bring those back up here, those surveys again? So
Yes, sir.
as you refer to them, and these were submitted by Dr. Hamilton back in January when he first made his presentation to the board. At that time, the lawsuit was still pending. Since then, the county's been released from the lawsuit.
Where would you like these?
Well, I think as you're presenting or talking about these cattle guards, they may want to refer to them, so maybe you just lay them on the table somewhere, or
It'll be fine if you just put them right here. And we
they'll
can
stay there.
Then are you asking me to present the same information we did in January? What's the scope of it? Because
I think we're all in a, hold on just a second. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was going to ask if you wanted to invite the audience to come while we're talking. If you wanted to do that.
I think that we pretty well understand the issues. If I may summarize, or Counselor, do you want to summarize this from that memo you wrote? You want me to summarize?
Well, I'm not sure I could summarize, but I certainly want both sides to elaborate on this. But Dr. Hamilton is requesting the installation of 2 cattle guards, and we have the diagrams here that shows exactly where they would be. It's on his property on County Road 390. I guess what I want to be sure, let me get my directions straight. Which way is north? Is north from these that way? From these drawings?
North looks like it's that way on that.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so we're talking about the westernmost and the easternmost of the cattle guards, and then Mr. Halpin's, the entrance to his property is right over here. I think what it kind of boils down to, well, there are several issues. One would be the width of the easement that the county has. Right now, it's an indeterminate width. And there's going to be some discussion whether the board should define exactly how much of that land it feels is necessary for the easement. The other, and I think one of the real issues, has to do with some existing fencing that is there, and I believe that's what both parties want to address. And Mr. Boyd, if you want to at least tell the commissioners what fencing you're proposing removing if these cattle guards are installed, perhaps that would at least get the conversation started.
Okay, is there anything else we're going to be discussing today?
Such as, I guess I need to know what else.
If I may interject, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought we were down basically that we had reached a general agreement that there were 2 sites to put cattle guards in, that Mr. Hamilton had agreed to put the cattle guards in at his expense to meet county specifications. I understand there's a portion of this right-of-way someplace here, Clint, that is deeded.
There's,
That's that over here on this end?
it's between the 2 proposed cattle guards, is that correct? Where the deed, the 45-foot wide easement was actually deeded to the county, is my understanding.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And then we have the question then of the identifying the right-of-way. And most of our county right-of-ways that we don't own, the general language is that we have sufficient, we have the right, maybe I'm not using the right term, but by prescription, whatever is necessary to maintain the county road for the right-of-way.
Correct.
I think we also have some utilities there that need to be protected, that they stay within the right-of-way we can or where it's appropriate. And then we come down to the third issue, I think, or another issue was that we have a wide enough right-of-way where these cattle guards are, and I think someplace I remember 60 foot, so we have enough room to put a swinging gate, or a gate that'll be at the same level as the road, and there's enough room to maintain that as you go through the cattle guard, or across the cattle guard, or through the gate, and that would occur in two locations. And that, I think, as I recall, were the major issues. In terms of the fence, that's been a point that you brought up and that we've been discussing. I guess the question I would have is, what jurisdiction do we have as a county that they have a fence there, and if the county requires it, does the county have to put it in and maintain it?
Well, let me, maybe it would be easier if Mr. Halpin and his attorney came up and talked first about what their concerns are. And both sides were given copies of the proposed resolution I had submitted to the board some time ago. I think, as I understood from talking to Mr. Boyd, it was generally acceptable in the resolution, the proposal that I had submitted. Is that a correct statement?
No, I would not say that's a correct statement. I would say that the proposal talked about keeping the fence up, and we objected to
Okay,
that.
and that part, that's right. And that part clearly is an issue that you don't agree with.
Correct.
But other than the fencing,
And then the only other issue that brought up that we were not aware of is what you referred to as the Marshall Decree, and that easement right away. That's 1.07 miles you had in your resolution, and I said you needed to show that to me.
Right.
You provided the Marshall Decree, but I'm not intimate enough to know exactly what portion of the road that relates to and what doesn't, beyond Halpin's western boundary.
and perhaps it would be appropriate to have Mr. Halpin and his attorney come up here and talk about that.
I think one other item that I saw that I was questioning was that, as I recall, Clint, you had some rather specific language in there regarding who could construct a cattle guard in terms of their construction abilities and so forth. And I thought maybe that might have been a little restrictive, is that we just, we come in and it's built to our standards. If it's not, we don't accept it. Or maybe I'm too broad.
And I don't really have a problem with that. I'm sure that if the cattle guards are approved, I'm sure that Mr. Boyd will select somebody who's very qualified to do it, and it would be done according to county road and bridge standards.
Correct.
Mr. Belleville and Mr. Halpin, why don't you come up here and sort of tell the commissioners what your response is with reference to this, so they can understand. Donna, do you want to?
Bob Getnick.
Donna? Would it be easier if you sat over on this side so you're directly in line here?
Maybe the easiest way for us to summarize what the Halpin's position relative to these things is, when Mr. Smith provided me with a copy of the draft resolution that he had drawn up for you all to consider. And then I submitted a revised resolution with what our positions to it be, and I can provide you all with that. And I can provide Mr. Boyd with a copy of it. The language in this draft that is italicized is the language that we added to it. And our concern is two things, is to work with Dr. Hamilton's needs, to work with Halpin's needs, and to make these things as specific as we can make them, so neither the two of these parties or the county has any more concerns about this. Everybody knows what's going to happen and how it's going to work. Basically, I think, and Mike knows so much more about the history of this. I think you have a copy.
I have a copy of Mr. Boyd.
Thank you.
You bet. We started out being, objecting to the inclusion of cattle guards in a road, but as is indicated in this draft resolution, they're willing to withdraw those objections, provided that there are conditions attached to the installation of cattle guards that protect the use of the road, protect the Halpin's property, and define what we're talking about so that parties in the future will know where this easement is, where the road is, so that encroaching fences aren't put on it. There aren't disputes between the county and adjoining property owners about where their easement line is. Maybe all of us can stay out of the courthouse by doing that. So, basically we don't, at this point, based on the draft resolution that we drew up, we don't have any problem with the placement of the cattle guards where Mr. Boyd has indicated them on the map. Our understanding is the purpose of that is to allow Dr. Hamilton to get his cattle across the road to graze both sides of the road. But what we don't understand or agree with is if that's what the purpose of this is, we don't understand what the need is to open range of the road beyond that to the Halpins. So basically what we're asking the county to consider is to, one, allow Dr. Hamilton to put his cattle guards in on the conditions that are stated in this draft, that, and basically what Commissioner Catney said, that it'll be done according to county road standards, that there will be sufficient bypasses on the sides of the cattle guards to allow traffic to go around them, and so that they're not interfered with by the cattle guards, and so that the county has access to it to do whatever maintenance is needed. We do think that it's important to devise a legal description of where this easement starts and stops. Sideways, we know where it starts and stops going longitudinally, but side to side, we think that we need to know, where does this easement lie? And this, as Mr. Smith indicated, is a 45-foot deeded easement between the cattle guards. We think that's an appropriate width to use for the entire easement up to where it meets the Halpin's property, with some additional width, as Commissioner Catney indicated, where the cattle guards are, so that you have sufficient room for a bypass. We think there's a condition of doing this. Dr. Hamilton should be required to keep his fences in place to keep the cattle off the road between the easternmost cattle guard and the Halpin's property. Or, and as an alternative, this is a relatively short distance, that the county would agree to put an easement fence along the described line of the easement. And on Dr. Hamilton's side, there is a fence on the Halpin side.
There's a fence here.
Yeah,
This fence is, actually, it's pretty much gone.
okay. But whatever fencing there is on the Halpin side, he would be happy to donate to the
And where's the
county.
Halpin site on that map?
This is our place, but,
So you're talking on your side would be that little short straight stretch
well,
from there to there, right? No? Because
based on the debacle that got us here today from the previous board, the deed that they created is described from this point, and that deed included this road to this point.
But
So-
that deed, is that deed
so-
valid?
No, that's the one that was overturned. So when that occurred, I paid and had that description surveyed because it was not surveyed before they deeded it. And there was a partially constructed fence here on this side of the road.
That's on
Robert
your land or on?
No, this is all on Hamilton's land.
Okay.
That he put in, and then a lot of it got damaged in the fire, and it was never repaired. I installed a fence on this side, and that fence is still intact today
So why did you install that fence?
because that property was deeded to me.
Oh, the road was deeded to you, so you fenced it at that
Right.
time.
I surveyed it,
But it, right.
and
But
I left the survey pins in there, and I could come in 3 feet and installed the fence, so there was no encroachment. And the sole purpose was to keep livestock.
And that is to, and that was that right was also rescinded in the judgment?
Yes, it purported to actually give him ownership of the land, and he went ahead and fenced it on that belief that he owned that stretch of land, which was incorrect. It was not.
Okay.
It was never intended to be a deed to the land, just a deed to the right-of-way, but it's all been declared invalid. So, but based on his understanding at that time, that's why he went ahead and fenced it.
But, yeah, and then I guess my point is that fence is there so that if the county decided that it was in the county's interest to avoid future problems to put an easement fence along the easement line, that Mr. and Mrs. Halpin would donate that fence, so those fencing materials to the county to leave in place or to move to the line wherever the line is described as being on the easement.
May I ask a question, please? Sure. And Mr. Boyd, that's the fence that you would like to see removed, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Halpin, through the court of law, I'm just trying to understand. Why is it that you feel that, how is it detrimental to you to not have that fence there? If the fence was removed, how would that harm you, or what is the purpose of that?
First off, if you put in these 2 cattle guards and allow open range, this is roughly a quarter mile, this section. Cattle can come, they got a quarter mile of county road to cross, and they can access all of this property. If you take all this fence down, why even have a cattle guard right there? It's in the middle of nowhere. Now
Because
you've got
you may-
open range on both sides of the cattle guard.
Because you may put a cross fence through there to have 2 different pastures. Matt, I'm just I'm addressing that as an animal scientist, not as a commissioner.
So what we're asking is if the cattle guard goes here and here, this is open range, the remainder of this road stay fenced to keep the cows off of it.
And is there a reason why you're opposed to having it open range the whole way?
Because the cows will come right in here to this fence line. They're going to congregate right in here. And when you got a lot of heavy snow, you plow the road, the cows go right on where you plowed the road.
Sure, I would too.
The county has refused to maintain this section of road for over 30 years. For a long time, they didn't even maintain it from here. So I've maintained this entire road for 32 years. In 1994, they attempted to put gates on here, and the county said, no, you're not doing that. So the county came down and improved the road from this point to this point. And the commissioners said, and they had everybody out there, and you guys get HUTF funding for this road almost clear down to here. But they hadn't bothered to maintain it. So the county came in and they rebuilt the road to this point, and they quit. And I asked the commissioners, you're here with all your equipment, why don't you just fix the whole road that you're getting paid by the state to fix? The response was, well, we'll come back and do it. Well, that never happened. So from this point to here, I've been the only one to maintain it. I plow it, I gravel it, I keep the ditches mowed, I keep the sides of the road cleaned up. I've got almost $25,000 tied up in that road. And livestock on the road, when it's wet, they make a mess. You get cow shit all over your cars coming in and out. And I haven't had to put up with it for, I've been there, 32 years? And so I'm just asking a little give and take here. If you allow open range here, just fence the remainder of the road, and part of it's already fenced.
Then the other, I mean, a couple of other points that we have in here, and I mean, you all can read it as well as I can. As you all are aware, the road, that in Judge Marshall's order, the road goes beyond the Halpin's property.
That answers your question, I think.
Yeah.
The Marshall decree at the time.
Start here?
Right. She said, and the county has all their records clear back to 1952, because this was a county road that accessed a piece of property down here.
Past you.
And it's still on the county records as a county road. Now,
So where does that right-of-way lay along your property? From right there, from there east, or
well,
right there's your house? Okay, well, that's
Yeah,
where the
right
green
there.
ends. Okay, is that where the yellow is? Is that on you or is that on Hamilton?
it's on Hamilton's. Well, no, it's not. It's on me to this point, right here. And then from here beyond, and there's no need for a road to be there, and that's what that language was, is to clear up. And I think that's what the previous board did, is say, when they did their resolution, is they no longer have any interest in County Road 390 extending beyond that point.
Well, and that, what's suggested in here, and then I've given a little more thought to this. I mean, what the suggestion in our revised resolution was that for the distance where the easement lies on Halpin property, the county would deed it to Halpin. And then where it's on Dr. Hamilton's property would be deeded to Dr. Hamilton. But I think what a better approach to that would be, since there is nobody back here that is going to be affected other than the Halpins and Dr. Hamilton, is that the county would simply abandon that easement or right-of-way from the point where it meets the Halpin property back to the end of where Judge Marshall said.
How does that affect properties on that east end? Who owns those
I
properties?
think it's all Halpin, and
I own this, and Hamilton owns this.
yeah, I think it's all Halpin.
And Hamilton owns this, on the south side.
Hamilton owns this and all that.
So Hamilton may have a need for access down there. He can access across his private land. Okay.
Right, he's got plenty, he's got access to it, and the Halpins have.
The blue, I believe, is your property. Is that correct, Mr. Hamilton? Here. And then what's in red is Mr. Hamilton's property.
Right.
And I think that this is where the,
This is
Right
where,
there.
yeah, right here, this is where Mike's property is, and this road continues to go back this way
Historically.
historically, but nobody ever uses it.
May I ask a question? Are these separate parcels?
yes.
That's what those are. So my concern would be that, we're never going to live forever. Okay, we don't know what Dr. Hamilton's intentions would be after, nor do we know yours. Okay, so I would have a difficult time abandoning that road, not knowing that information.
And that's the county's decision, and the county wants to
But from
maintain
a
it.
legal point of view, if that land is deeded, there has to be access. You can't landlock
Right.
somebody,
Right.
so it could be, if it had to be,
Absolutely.
it could be settled legally. The
Bullock.
county doesn't have to hold on to
Okay.
that for that reason. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I apologize, I interrupted you. Mr. Boyd, I understand by asking Mr. Halpern, Sergeant Halpern, why he felt this was needed here. Could you tell us, please, why you feel it should be open range and why this is not just sufficient?
Well, there is a cross fence, number one, and then number two, we don't feel like we should have any limitations on the use of our land, period. And one portion of the land is under a conservation easement, the other one is not. And in the future, I think you reference it, we don't live forever, and portions of this can be sold, and portions cannot be sold. And I really didn't understand the Marshall decree about where it started. You know, when I had a conversation with Mr. Smith
Frankly,
here.
I wasn't clear either where it was started.
I never had that clarity until today. And I also didn't have this, you know, this version of it. I had Mr. Smith's version of it.
Sure.
And, you know, we're looking at it from the standpoint of this is property we owned. We want to be peaceful and go forward. We don't want to replicate what's gone in the past. And I've had one conversation with Mr. Halpin about that, and I understand his position on what was conveyed to me. But we want to remove this fence. Cattle guard is because of the cross fence and the future flexibility we need to have. Otherwise, if you have this restriction, basically have the equivalent of eminent domain in terms of this being useful, not useful. And
How do the cattle just come through here and go back? I'm not playing a devil's advocate. I'm not taking sides. I'm just trying to understand.
the answer is yes.
They make gates to put cattle through.
Okay.
And you know, cattle can go anywhere that you want to direct them to, but you want to cycle them through, and we want the full use of our property.
And just as, you know, I'll play the devil's advocate for a second. And I understand Mr. Boyd's position on that, but if he were to take his fences down, the county has the perfect legal right to reconstruct the fence from here to delineate the extent of their easement. And if the county were to...
I'm not sure that's correct. Do we, because our easements are undefined, basically.
What we're asking the county to do is to
But
define
I'm saying, you're saying that we have to build that fence.
No, there's a fence there.
I misunderstood you. You said the county has the legal right?
If there wasn't a fence there, the county has a legal right, but there is a fence there at this point.
The
But
fence,
Mr. Halpern,
But it doesn't matter.
the fence that's there now technically belongs to Mr. Hamilton.
But my point being, gentlemen, is this, is that we get in a much broader issue here with open range lands.
Correct.
If we come in here and we require a fence here, we can also require fences on every place there's a cattle guard across the county, because we set a precedent here by requiring it.
well, what you're setting a precedent for here, Commissioner Catley, you seem to me is that anybody that has property that's on both sides of a road anywhere in this county can now come to you and say, if you do this, at least has the arguable right to come to you and say, well, I'll put a couple of cattle guards on Hermit Road, you know, for 4 or 5 miles, and I'll tear all my fences down.
And I agree with you entirely, but if I look at the traffic on Hermit Road versus the traffic on this road, I don't think they're apples and oranges.
So am I less of a citizen because I don't live on Hermit Road?
No, but we look at the traffic on the road and what's required to maintain that road in a safe and approachable manner.
Nobody lives down there, not even Hamilton. We deal with it every single day.
But also, there's a state law that says this is open range.
Well, there's a state law that says all the property in this county is open range. And if, you know, the cattle ranch wanted to put cattle guards in that road and tear their fences down, open range is open range. So I don't know
Well,
that
guess
they
what?
would do
While we're
that.
just moment with me, well, as a livestock specialist, the first thing I see here is that we are potentially causing range degradation by requiring those cattle to go down and around a corner. So we increase the traffic, we increase the use of that land, we increase the possibility of range degradation by concentrating that movement. Where if you have them moving across a wider area, you don't encounter that.
Right. Well, I mean, I can't argue that with you because I'm not a range specialist or a
Oh, I am.
cattle specialist. But I think your attorney and executive could give you some advice about this, where the county has the absolute right to fence its easements. And what we're asking the commissioners to do is to define this easement so that we all know where it is, so it's not indeterminate. I mean, I think that's been a lot of the problem historically, is that you have a historically used road back there, but other than the road surface, nobody really knows where the easement is other than on this 45-foot piece that was deeded. So
You're
just trying
also
to solve
talking
the
a
problem.
distance from here to here, roughly 900 feet. So we're not talking this huge, major range issue. This is a small piece of ground. It's roughly 7 acres.
I have a question. That's what I brought up a minute ago. If this is open unfenced,
This here is the same as 7 acres.
Piece right there.
first of all, this fence line right there.
There's a fence line right here.
That's Mr. Hamilton, Dr. Hamilton's
Yes.
fence?
Well, and it's like Ms. Halpin brought, that you put a gate in that, and then you get access to this through a gate, as opposed to
You know,
having to
Mr.
come across the road.
Mr. Halpin has the option of putting a fence here or a cattle guard here, and that's up to him.
Sure, that's his property.
That's his property.
Now, that fence that we're discussing here, that is now on county property, is that correct? It was put in by you when it was
Well, it's-
prior to it being deeded
To
back to
answer
the
that
county.
question, that's undecided because the county hasn't made a decision on how wide your easement's
I
going
got
to be.
I'm
You
with
know you have 45 feet wide here.
Right.
I guess maybe though that easement is actually on Hamilton's land, not the county right of way, 'cause we don't own that land.
Well, you own an easement across
My
Hamilton's
position
land.
on that, unless somebody brings clarity to it, is that fence is on Mr. Hamilton's property, okay? Regardless of how wide the easement is, the fence is his. Okay, he can take it down. If the county wants to take the position as you two are suggesting about putting the fence up, then you would need to expend the money to put the fence up. Okay? Mr. Hamilton isn't interested in gifting that to the county because he doesn't want the fence.
Let me ask
So,
you a
you know,
question.
Mr. Halpin is suggesting that he would be happy to donate it to the county. That's kind of premature because that's not something he can donate.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Boyd. I'm not sure if you're in a position
What are these?
to say anything. They're asking for it to be a defined 40-foot wide easement for that section. What's your position on that? From that cattle guard, if that cattle guard's installed to the
Each one is a quarter
Halpin's
of a
property line.
quarter of a quarter. So
Is
there's
this 45 foot?
That's the 45-foot deed.
So that would be a 40-acre plot.
40
So
acres.
Each of 40
Continue
acres.
to be a 40.
So if this
would
is
either
40
be
acres,
a deeded easement or
this
the
is sure
county
more than
would
7
declare it a 40-foot wide easement.
Yeah, I haven't been out there, Bob, so I don't-
No, but I'm looking as we look on the map.
In our previous conversation, we agreed to 30-foot wide.
And we talked about very
I remember the conversation. We never had a discussion about it being 45, so
No,
I
and
can't
that's
respond
what's
today.
being proposed right now by them, is that make it 45 feet. And I understand that it's not something
You
you
know, I
can agree.
think the goal here is like what was stated by Mr. Halpin, is to move forward without having some of the history, you know, that I wasn't privy to, but listening to it, it's not good for either one, I think the key here is having an understanding. The county says that 390 terminates here. That's important, I think, to define that. I also think it's important to say that this is maintained by the county up to this terminus point, which is what you drafted. And we were happy with that because that means they got to come all the way down here on property Mr. Halpin has been having to maintain for the last 30-some years. And I would, you know, in that proposal, it said the county would take care of it all the way up to here, so that's why we agreed to that.
I think, in all honesty, and I think Mike has been unduly put upon to maintain this county road.
Yeah.
My first thought is
He
that,
told me that when I
and
first
we
met
have
him.
to look at it. If this is a county road, he has the right to a county road up here.
Correct.
And I think, and I'm just throwing this out, but one of my areas of questioning is how much is it going to cost to bring this up to a county road standard, so we don't have to worry about mud. We don't have to worry about, you know, you've invested a lot of money in there, 25 grand you said.
Right now, my road's in
And-
better shape than what the county made.
But I think, Mike, I mean, I'm throwing this out, but I think as a person back here, You have every right to a county-maintained road, or a road that's maintained to the county standards without you having to maintain it to those standards.
Or
Yeah,
it's
we
been
agree with that.
You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, oh yeah, we wouldn't
Well, I don't
dispute that.
disagree, but when they refuse to do it, I still got to get in and out.
Well,
so
that
I
was
just do
then,
it.
and this is now. I mean, this is a county road, it's gonna be taken care of.
Right.
I don't care if it was then or whatever, but if we go forward, if this is a county road, if we end it to here, well, okay. Well, if that's the case, how come we end it right there?
Well, you can't end it right there.
You know,
Judge
and this is
Marshall
a
said
county
it's your
road that comes
road,
down,
so it's your
this is a county road historically down to your gate. I think that should be maintained by the county
Well,
to
there's all
standards
agreement on that.
that make it acceptable for ingress and egress on your behalf.
Yeah.
Can I have a question? I have a question. Because you're talking about cattle as far as livestock. Does Dr. Hamilton have any other livestock that runs his property? Does he have buffalo?
He does.
Okay. Since you've been there, have you ever had an issue with not being able to get to your home?
No, because the road's been fenced.
You know, the part of the cattle business is you want to rotate. You know, Dr. Hamilton is a great conservationist historian and loves to keep his property from what I've seen. Yeah. And he owns a lot of land in this area, and he does rotate his cattle. He actually leases it out to other people. He's actively in that business. And so this is not a hobby for him. This is the business for him. You know, can I share the conversation you and I had on the phone about some of this fencing issue?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. You know, when I spoke to Mr. Smith the other day, you know, I took it that his opinion was that this is Dr. Hamilton's property, and that's for Dr. Hamilton to do anything with on the fence. Okay. Number two, we need some clarity on this, but I understood you to say the other day that you went to the assessor's office and made sure that this portion of it was taken off the assessor's roll so that Mr. Halpin wouldn't be taxed on it anymore, and it reverted back to Mr. Hamilton. Is that correct?
No, you're up there,
I'm just telling you what I heard.
but you're up here, right, where you were pointing there?
I am.
No,
No,
that
it's
map
not there.
turned
map's
around.
opposite of this one.
But, yeah,
Let me.
anything
Turn
beyond,
around so they're going the right way.
I want to share the conversation because it's part of me understanding and coming here and what I understood Mr. Smith to say was that he got that done a couple months ago to get it off of his assessment back to Mr. Hamilton, and that this extension beyond the gate from here on forward all the way out was Mr. Hamilton's and suggested to quit claim it. Okay, I'm just hearing that for the first time on Monday, Tuesday.
I'm hearing it for the first time right now. I've been under the impression, unless something else has been done, that this property, this is a county road going out much further, not Dr. Hamilton's property. Am I
guess that's
missing
what,
something?
I'm
It's an
missing it.
easement on Dr.
It's an
Hamilton's
easement.
property.
So it's not a county.
We don't
which
own
is
the
why
road,
I'm-
we own the easement,
Okay,
right.
to help maybe
That's
answer your
really what I
question.
meant,
That's-
that the county
but
owned the
that-
easement.
I'm on the same
When the
page.
county
Not
created this deed and deeded it to us,
Mhm.
it created a whole separate parcel that was on the tax roll.
Oh, okay.
So this is the part.
That's the part
that
they
he
assessed to you,
removed.
not here?
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
Okay. This is still assessed to me, this little piece here.
With an easement going beyond.
Well, see, as the county road, as it extended beyond here to an old house that was down here.
Where did it used to go here, Mike?
There was
Here's
always a
your house
road
here,
down here that came into this property.
See, it just goes right along here.
and then is this what I can see here is an old road or something?
Well, there's a lot of paths down through there.
Not to complicate it any, I was just trying to understand
Right.
Judge Marshall's degree, but
That's why I was
we're fine with it ending right here, 390 ending here, regardless of what the Judge Marshall decree is, and we're fine with that being abandoned. And if that's an easement, I don't think there's any need to quit claim it, as was proposed from Mr. Smith. because it's an easement, there's nothing to quit claim.
Just abandon.
Well, you could quit claim it, but I think from the county's point of view, it's just simpler to abandon it, and then it reverts to the underlying property
You know,
owner.
and we would support language that said the county abandons that road, just so there's clarity. And I agree, there's more clarity, that's great. But I think the main points is we wanted it to 390 to be terminated here, county maintain it, we want the fence removed. Mr. Halpin has the option of a cattle guard or a gate here.
Wants on his property.
This be abandoned.
Bless you.
That's, you know,
That's your request.
that's our request, and that was our request previously.
I've got a question.
Our request is just to keep the
45,
road fence.
45 feet, the defined width of this easement, and the removal of yours is the removal of the...
Is your request
Excuse
still,
me. I'm sorry, I said that backwards.
would your request still to keep the fence if the county agreed to maintain that road to your property line?
Question.
Well, I don't think the county has any option relative to that. It's a county road. You have a legal obligation to maintain it. You can't, it's not a question of agreement. I think you're legally obligated to do it.
You're entirely right, and it depends on what the classification of road is, the degree of maintenance that we have. We have some county
Right.
roads
Right.
we only maintain twice a year.
You bet.
You know, our position again is we've been denied the use of this property for many, many years, as this has gone through, unfortunately, litigation and so forth, and we just want access to our property, given that we're in the cattle business.
You haven't been denied use of this. You can get on there anytime you want. You can drive off the road anywhere in here that you want. This fence is tore down clear back to here. Anything that's in here, water in here, put a gate there. I'm just asking that you put in the cattle guards, keep the cows off the road for the remainder of the county road.
I would like to ask a question. Who owns this property on to the east of there?
Here,
Yeah,
This is Hamilton's.
this is Hamilton out here.
how far?
Red is Hamilton.
I think it's another square back out here.
Who owns that land with this neither red nor blue? Right that
Up
corner.
here? I think it's somebody else.
This is Haynes.
Okay, now where does this, as you're proposing, this easement would end right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, but there is in fact an existing right-of-way across here back towards that property.
Yeah, it came right across here and it got to into this piece of ground.
It used to have a house back here, and a property owner sold it to Mr. Hamilton.
So if somebody, if Haynes wanted to have access to that property, he's within a couple hundred yards of an existing easement.
Well, he can't though, because this is Dr. Hamilton owns this, and if Dr. Hamilton says, no, I'm not giving you an easement across my property, he doesn't, and he's got access to this property.
He has access to
It
it.
doesn't matter. He wants to build a house over there. He wants to sell it off later. I'm trying to keep the options open down the road.
But that's what I'm trying to explain is that he doesn't have any options. The county road ends like right back here. And Mr. Haynes does not have, this does not provide any service to his property, nor legally does have any right to
I
get
understand
to
that
it.
completely. My point is, there is an existing right-of-way across Hamilton and Halpin over to here someplace that already exists.
Right.
So now if I want to try to negotiate a right-of-way from there to that corner, I have to buy a right-of-way off a much shorter distance than I'd have to come clear back over here and buy a right-of-way all the way in.
Guess that's between Mr. Haynes and Dr. Hamilton.
But, no, what I'm saying, isn't that,
I don't think that's the county's concern.
And I think Donna was absolutely correct when she said, considering what may occur in the future, why would we want to abandon this, just leave it in place and see what happens down the road?
that's where I'm going.
Yeah, and I think nobody's
To
going to
access
argue
this
that.
property here, the only way to access it is he came down the county road and there's an easement along this fence line that brought you into that property. That's been fenced across by Hamilton and haven't been able to use it since that.
Well, and to address Jay's point, and Clint made this point too, is from this point forward, there are only, essentially to where this road ends, there are only two people that own that property, Dr. Hamilton and the Halpins. If Dr. Hamilton were to sell off any portion of this property, that would be, property would be landlocked, and he cannot do
Cannot
that.
do that.
He has to provide
Correct.
access to it, so the county can stop it right here. And then if Dr. Hamilton wants to sell off this parcel, it's his responsibility to put an easement across his property to give this property access. You don't need a county road, and that's true with any of these. And if, same thing's true with Mike's property, that you can't landlock somebody that you're selling a separated parcel to. You would have to make provision for ingress and egress, and that's not a problem the county needs to
Can I
resolve.
try and sum up for myself, and my fellow commissioners may have something else? Where it stands, what the questions on the table are. I personally appreciate Mr. Smith's suggestion about let's absorb it, let's discuss it in an executive session. But I want to make sure I fully grasp this. The question on the table is width of this and whether a fence that's along here, regardless who owns it, I'm not concerned about that, whether a fence will continue to be here or not. I'm not concerned about the cattle guards. I think we're all in agreement with that. I'm trying to just get to the crux of where the, I don't want to use the word dispute because it's not a dispute. The discussions on how to resolve where we are is the fence line and the width from here to here. Am I too simplistic?
No, in my opinion, we think the county needs to absolutely define the width of its easement here. I know generally the county roads aren't that way, but that's been a point of dispute from day one, and the courts have even said that somebody needs to decide that way.
Well, because there have been issues of trespass involved in this ongoing litigation for decades, and we can resolve those issues of trespass going forward by simply delineating an easement line.
I would like, to, if I may, limit this to 5 minutes more on each side so we can move on. I think we're repeating ourselves a lot here.
I think we're done.
Yeah,
what's
we
in
all
here is
understand
pretty
what the
much
issues are.
what we think
Let's
the
talk about.
issues
I
are.
have not seen that before, so I will certainly read it.
No, I understand.
I fully appreciate what you're saying about having your cattle have free rein on your own property. That's a strong argument. Your argument about you need to be able to access your property without having to worry about the degradation of the road, even though we're maintaining it. We're not there every other day, but the cows will be, potentially. I understand both issues. I'd like for us to discuss it with council and see how we can fix it. I really would like not to end up in a courtroom. That is my biggest
We're
goal.
committed not to be, but
As-
we also think that if the county did maintain that, one of the two issues Mr. Halpin brought up about having to maintain it, the quality of it and everything goes away.
I concur with that, and
Now-
I think we're all in agreement that the county will maintain it.
I don't think we are. As chairman of the board, I appreciate you speaking for you. But I think we need to sit down and say, okay, we've got 3 items here we need to address. And we have spent, how much, $140,000 arguing this, and you spent a lot of money arguing it, back and forth for a simple right-of-way and cattle guards. Let's find a common solution that makes sense, and let's get this thing done. Is that, I think we've carried this thing way too long.
I want to make it clear, though, I agree with Mr. Boyd. Those fences now, even though one of them was installed by Mr. Help and it's on land that belongs to Dr. Hamilton, the fence belongs to Dr. Hamilton. I know you were anxious to start taking on the fences now. I would assume the board would have a final decision on this after we have our executive session, but I don't know if you're committed to taking the fence down right away, if you're willing to wait a couple of weeks until they can talk on this.
We're committed to taking it down because we presented this back in January.
We've been, you're entirely right.
And our position hasn't changed.
It's your opinion, it's not our opinion.
But, our position hasn't changed since January. We've been patient, but I would have to say Mr. Halpin and Mr. Hamilton have gone through a long period of time. We need to put that behind us and move forward. We own the property, we want access to the property. It shouldn't be limited in any way. We agree with Mr. Halpin about where 390 should terminate. The question about the balance of the road, we're okay with it, quote, being abandoned or left alone. and if you maintain it to Mr. Halpin's property, we'd be happy with that.
Well, I'm just saying that if you do decide, if you're going to go ahead and take the fence down, then Mr. Halpin needs to understand you can't stop him from doing that. I know you prefer to keep it up, but
Well, I bought and paid for that, and so that material's mine.
At the county's
the material, I mean, I don't know. So you're talking about what, you got T-posts and barbed wire and stuff?
Okay, let's
my
decide what we're gonna do. We'll come back with it.
I'll work with Mr. Halpin on that.
Pardon me?
Gets his
I'll work with
materials
Mr.
back.
Halpin on that. We'll have a conversation on that.
Okay.
That indicates you're willing to let him take his material?
Yeah, the only thing I don't know is if he did both sides of the fence or not. I just don't know.
So as we're sitting here in a,
South side?
Hamilton did the north side.
You did
The
the
north
south?
side was there.
so as we're sitting here today, then we can make a gentleman's agreement that you agree when the fence is taken down, that he gets his material that he had invested in putting the fence up.
If I understand it, it's on the south side. That's correct. That's still there. Correct, still there, south
Okay.
side.
Okay, folks, I hate to move along, but I mean, we need some things we need to
The
do.
only question I have is the executive session going to be today or a future date?
I'm suggesting July 5 or July 6 are our next.
Thank you. Can we do this on the 30th?
I won't be here on the 30th.
I have one other request. Mr. Halpin has some equipment in front of that gate. I haven't been there for a long time. I'd like to have that removed.
Is that possible, Mike?
There's equipment in front of that gate. That's the property, and the other removed.
That's ours.
That piece of property right there is mine.
That's not moving.
That piece of property right there is mine. It's a whole separate issue than what we're talking about.
If you want to talk outside about it, you certainly can.
No, let's just keep you separated. Okay. We need to move along. We do have quite a little left on our agenda. Gary, while you're back there, we were talking about possibly maintaining that road up that we were just talking about. There's a point that the county doesn't maintain it. Mike's been maintaining it. And maybe you get a chance, you can kind of look and get a feel of what it would take for us to take over and maintain it down to his property line. Okay. Chip, welcome. At this point, I would like to invite Chip Taylor to come forward with the Colony Counties Incorporated.
Where would you like me to be? Just here in the front?
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience. I'm glad you had something going on there. I wasn't keeping you waiting. Last time I came down, the audience listened to, so I'm going to kind of turn sideways.
Good.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to be down here. This facility
Good to
is
see you.
really neat. I couldn't believe it when I pulled in to come up the little road, and this is really cool. I actually went around and peeked around upstairs a little bit, which was cool, and saw the library. I don't know if you all saw in one of my newsletters, I was just on a library panel talking about libraries in the 20th century and how you keep them vital and relevant. And that is sure a neat little thing that you have going up there. I know you all have seen this. I brought a couple of copies of the annual report. I'm happy for you to do whatever you would like with them. I really am hoping to hear, and I was kind of intrigued about the discussion you all were just having about what's going on in the county, and I'm glad to have the community center as a good occasion to come down. But I think you know my theme with CCI, you guys have all heard me say it. I like to help commissioners make informed decisions. It feels to me like our mantra is local control and counties controlling their own destiny, and the best way to be able to maintain that over the years is to make sure that you all are able to make informed decisions, both informed on the law, informed on the facts, informed by the politics. As my national counterpart likes to say, we don't want to be partisan, but we do have to understand the politics, and that's part of, I think, what we hope that we're helping, is everybody get what's going on. I just was intrigued the last 2 days in the paper. I've heard both Governor Abbott of Texas and the Speaker of the Florida House talk about the state legislature being the most responsive level of government, and that they really ought to have more input on local matters because they are the most responsive. And of course, that kind of thing really rubs me the wrong way. And watching you guys interact with the community here, I'm thinking, I don't know if I want the state legislature trying to solve those kinds of issues. Having said that, it's part of our job to represent you there. We had a relatively good year with a divided legislature. It seemed like a bunch of the really wild stuff that we saw come through did not pass. We did see a couple of big compromises that the legislature was touting for transportation and other things. I think for CCI, our biggest things for you guys was in the child welfare area, making sure that we were getting adequate money in the budget to do both human services and child welfare programs, getting some flexibility in the way that the money is allocated, the factors that they use. And Jay, I don't know if it makes any difference to you, but we had a couple of technical procedural things having to do with the permanency of allocation of parental responsibilities and the enforceability of restraining orders outside of a juvenile context that we think the county attorneys were very concerned about being more efficient as they process those cases. We obviously, I don't think it's probably a huge deal for you guys, but Adams County and Pueblo County were very concerned about marijuana tax, and that gets a lot of attention, of course, in the legislature, and we spent quite a bit of time trying to navigate between the two counties, taking different approaches, and here again, trying to protect their discretion and help them be smart, but also help folks understand why they might be going.
The other caveat with that, so the fact that they have it is causing us headaches.
I think, and I'm glad you said that, Bob. One of the things that we got in the legislature this year was a fund specifically to provide money to address impacts in counties that haven't got retail sales or don't have commercial activity. And that's a real challenge. And in fact, I would say, I hear that from my counterparts in the other states as well. Just recently in Nevada and Oregon, they were looking at how do we deal with the counties the impacts for counties that don't want to have this. And in Oregon, it's a little different because it's all mandated by the state. And so they get to go in and say, we have this impact, you've made this happen in our county. Nevada is more like Colorado. And I think trying to quantify those impacts is one of the huge questions. In fact, I would say if there's something that you guys can give me when we go in to testify on the committees that talk about the impacts on the 2/3 of counties that haven't approved commercial activities, a lot of it is being able to quantify what those additional impacts are, because we frequently have Metro law enforcement folks come in and they say, well, it's reallocating our resources. More of our time is spent on this. But they can't show additional FTE. They're not showing additional time in jails, and those kinds of things are really important.
One of the reasons we can't is that we don't have the money to hire the extra personnel.
And I think that's
Right, it's not.
If we're able to demonstrate in a quantifiable way, Custer County could use one more deputy just for these issues, then I think that's the kind of thing we can probably get funding for.
Well, I'm going to invite you to speak with our sheriff also, because he's the one that recently gave us statistics that were unbelievable, such as the number of tickets, I believe it was in the month of March, were written over $23,000, which was more than the year 2014, the whole year.
Wow.
So they're taking our back roads from 25. Okay. So we're dealing with all the...
So these aren't just driving while impaired tickets. These are trafficking, illegal distribution.
We've become a route around Pueblo from Walsenburg to go west, right through Westcliff, down Highway 69.
All right. I will definitely follow up on that.
So that's a domino effect, because it's got great impact on our small courtroom that is currently in a state where it's underfunded, and we're looking at that. But again, you mentioned the personnel, but even the trials of our courtroom. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, and we'll also keep you plugged in. Bless you. One of the interim committees that the legislature approved was on court security, underfunded courthouses, and jail security, and we'll be looking at both of those issues with them, with a view, I think, towards trying to get some more funding one of our long-running issues has been the mandate that counties provide courthouses and the dramatically increased way that courthouses are getting used these days, but there doesn't seem to be recognition of the additional burden on the county, and we'll be pushing, I hope, for something where the state will agree to lease or pay some kind of rentals on the space that they use in the county.
We have an equal problem with that, in that and my understanding is that a lot of the metropolitan areas really don't want additional state funding, additional state control over the district attorneys. In our small counties, the district attorney's budget takes up a sizable amount of our county budgets. And we've seen a significant increase, 50% or so, in misdemeanor and felony cases in the last 2 or 3 years. Now we're down where we basically have 2 experienced full-time attorneys, the district attorney and the assistant, and they just got through swapping positions. But the rest of our staff only has about 1.5 years experience. And we're going up against the public defender side, which has much longer experience and a much higher pay scale. And that somehow, to me, that's just as critical, the prosecution is as critical as the law enforcement is to start the process. And as an example, I don't want to get into detail right now, but we have 4 counties that were in our district. 3 of us said, yes, we'll go with the 10% increase. The biggest county said, no, we won't.
And I assume your allocation is based on caseload, so the biggest county is really hitting the DA
Based on
hard
population.
when they don't agree to fund.
And this other county, of course, obviously has a lot of prisons and stuff, but they're right in looking at their fiscal responsibility because it's a big chunk. But yet at the same time, we are to the point that we have saturated our district attorneys in terms of investigations, in terms of preparation for trial.
This is not an uncommon issue. This is
That's one we've talked about for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Do you have ideas that, the things that I think that we've talked about in the past, or whether the judicial districts ought to be their own taxing districts and just have their own levy and let the DAs go to the people and ask for taxes? And of course, the DAs have some reluctance about getting beholden because they like, especially in the multi-county districts, their ability to negotiate with all of you individually and see if they can't leverage one against another. Another idea that we've talked about is whether the DAs ought to be state funded, and maybe the local counties ought to put money into some kind of a state fund, and we'll let the state just provide equalized funding like it does for the public defender's office.
And I agree 100%. That's the problem we have, is that we're losing a lot of our assistant DAs because they can go across to the public defender side and get a 50% increase in salary.
Or to a Metro DA's office where the pay scale is higher.
But in our rural areas, I can't speak for all of them, but the commissioners I've visited, we all share this common concern.
I'm going to come back to you when we start having our discussions because I feel like I don't know the reason I hesitate when you ask a question like that is.
Oh, I don't expect an answer. I'm just raising a laundry list of
What the
things.
issue is, but all 3 of those kind of go together, and I appreciate that they're inspired a little bit by this conversation we're having about this new product in Colorado and how it impacts all 3 of those public safety justice branches.
But I'd like to see a discussion prior to our meeting with our DA, and that's happening around the first week of August. We've got that meeting coming up, so I'd really like to hear what you have as far as suggestions to help us in making those kind of decisions to move forward.
Well, I think we could sure throw things out. The biggest thing is even once commissioners get to a point of agreement, then there's a lot of other players that have to be.
Part of the commissioners don't want it, part of them want it.
That is the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Folks, if you're wondering what we're talking, and I apologize, I should have done this a minute ago. This is Colorado Counties Incorporated. It's an association that we belong to, and they basically offer us several services. One of them is monitoring legislative issues. The second is offering us advice on county issues, on county procedures, county processes. They also, a sister group, handles our risk.
CTSI.
The insurance reviews.
Our insurance, our risk bearing ability. And as a result, we get a lot of service from them at a very inexpensive cost to us based on what our fees are, our membership fee is. As an example, if we've got a question about, just like this, we went to you folks early in the year, or was it late last year, when we were talking about a marijuana issues in our county and what could we do legally and what couldn't we do. And they pulled a group together and pulled together some documentation and did some research for us, and what other counties are doing, and brought that back. As an example, if I wanted to know what are the, what's the county road boss paid in other counties our size, I can call them up, they'll do a survey for us, and get back and say, well, they range from this to this, in this a county that has this much area or this much budget. So they gather data for us as well. So this is all the things we're talking about. These are all services they offer. In addition to that, we have 2 meetings a year. We have one this year, I believe it's late November. That's our kind of our annual big meeting, and it's very informative. We get into everything from how to fund the Department of Transportation to public health issues, to broadband issues, you name it. If there's an issue there, normally we have somebody at this conference that can address those issues, or sometimes more than one if there's different sides to it. These two just finished a conference first part of the month.
5th through the 7th.
That you had up in somebody's
In Keystone.
Keystone. And again, a very educational, informative things. That the only criticism that I have when I get done is I want to have more information.
Right.
You feel like you've just been drinking from a fire hose. And you folks, I assume you too found that.
I was able to spend all 3 days, and I want to commend you because I know you were instrumental in getting all of the speakers. And there wasn't enough time to go to everything that I wanted. I couldn't split myself in half, but it was a great time to also network with commissioners that have, and the counties could be large and small. We're all experiencing the same kind of issues throughout our state. So it was a great opportunity to meet and make new friends as commissioners. So I appreciate that.
Good.
Another thing they offer when a commissioner is elected, they will have about a 3-day school before the first of the year to start to bring them up to speed. And I think you had 2 additional sessions.
Well, actually, our very first day, January 10th, we took off, and we had school that very first week. So.
But then this summer session, you had, I think, a couple of sessions for the new commissioners also.
Yep.
So that also is a service that this group provides us. Excuse me, I didn't.
No, I really appreciate you doing that, and I apologize to everybody because I'll all be looking at the back of my head going, who the heck is that guy? And my organization has 61 of Colorado's 64 counties as members. You know, part of, I think, the importance of the organization is the counties are administrative subdivisions of the state. They cover the whole state from rural areas to the urban areas and are required to provide human services and do the DA function and provide courthouse and do public safety and assess property tax and manage land use. And they do all of these things under just explicit statutory authority of the state because ultimately they are subsets of the state. So one of our big functions is to go to the State House and make sure that when legislators have a great idea about how they're going to change things, that they're considering how that impacts counties, how that impacts the county's ability to respond to local conditions, and frankly, whether or not it's even implementable. There's a lot of great ideas that come out of the state legislature that they haven't even thought about how they work on the ground. And so that's one of our big roles. The other thing is, especially with term limits still in existence in a bunch of counties, but also in all counties as there's turnover, it's a new set of responsibilities for most commissioners. Most of the new commissioners that I meet don't come from the planning commission or the land use office. There are some that do that have experience, and so we're constantly trying to provide opportunities for them to have education on what their land use opportunities are, how they can manage infrastructure, how they work with their cities, what their taxing authority is. And so our conferences do that. The new commissioner orientation that they're referring to, we found is very important to have folks just get a sense of where they fit in the big picture. And then we do a lot of kind of ongoing networking opportunities for these guys to meet with counties that are similarly situated in other areas of the state and say, how do you deal with boundary disputes? How do you deal with water issues? How do you deal with a special district that's gone belly up? And there's a lot of times that they have ideas that folks haven't thought of before. So we're constantly trying to facilitate that. I think what we're known most for is the fact that we represent the commissioners at the State House. But I hope we're becoming more known for our conferences. This most recent conference we just finished was our best attended conference in a long time, and we had people even the week of the conference saying, how can we get on your agenda? We need to come and speak to the commissioners. So we appreciate that work, providing that opportunity. I also recognize I'm one of those dudes from Denver, and so we are trying very much to come out and hear, talk to the commissioners. I'm willing to stay as long as any of you all want to talk about issues that you're thinking about, but I do appreciate the opportunity to come down and talk a little bit about what we do and the value for the county.
A couple of other things they've done for us or will do for us. We've been going through our county personnel policies, and we've had CCI come down and brief us and work us.
I want to take credit for that.
No, it's CTSI.
Oh,
But that's our sister organization, the insurance.
CTSI, and also CTSI will be down to help us do some things on budgets, to talk about budgeting, to talk about processes, to talk about issues, to talk about areas we need to be concerned with. Again, it's another educational process, but with their sister, brother, or whatever organizations, they're the same group of people.
Can you just speak briefly for us and the audience on the fact that you actually entertain commissioners from around the state to be on certain committees?
Oh, so there are a number of places in the statute where local officials are asked to serve. On Sex Offender Management Board, on Child Welfare Allocations Committee, there's a bunch of advisory committees in state statute. And they all get appointed different ways. They're frequently appointed by the Speaker, appointed by the Senate President, appointed by the Governor. But they want to get somebody who's informed. So there's a couple of different ways they do it, but one way is sometimes my board just picks somebody and says that person will be on the committee. There are other times in the statute when it says consult with the statewide association of county commissioners, and so the Speaker's office calls or the Senate President's office calls, and frequently, I would say, gosh, you guys look at the newsletter, almost every week in the newsletter there's some appointment that's being considered. Right now I was just referring to the legislative interim committees on courthouses and jails. There's about 5 more of those committees that are happening, and we've been asking commissioners to volunteer to participate, and we'll be recommending some of those names. And boy, I hope that we're being smart when we get a lot of applications about making sure that all different areas of the state are represented.
Yeah,
But we're doing
I'd
that
like
all
to
the
talk to you
time.
further about
All right then.
helping in that way.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. The only other thing that I had kind of as part of my presentation, and I'm happy to take as long or as little as you like, is the annual report. Because I feel like since I became director 7 years ago, I've been really trying to make CCI work better for the outlying counties. Not necessarily just rural counties, but all of the counties outside of the metro area. We rearranged our meeting schedule to hopefully help you not have to make as many trips to Denver and be efficient when you're there. We've done a lot more publications like this. We've got a weekly newsletter now in addition to our legislative report. We've got hard copy reports of the conference and a lot more press releases and hopefully information that you can use about what we're doing. But I am really interested particularly in your feedback about that and whether there's ways I can do more. I will tell you we're looking at an AV system. Our AV system right now was originally installed and supposed to do video conferencing. The technology is about 15 years old, and you can imagine how well it works with other video conferencing technology. It's a challenge to do video conference, but if it's important, I want to understand that. And those kinds of things, if you would give me the feedback, we want to be sure to take that
I would love to do that with you.
into consideration. Are there other things that you guys had in your head that you
One other thing that I'd like to also point out, though, Louis, now do you understand the counties, we are members of the Colorado Counties Incorporated. But then by working through CCI, then we are also a part of the National Association of County Commissioners. So we do have correspondence, we have information and things coming back all the way from the national level on issues back to the county as well as just state issues.
And as you might expect, we work in close concert with the National Association when we talk about payments in lieu of taxes or forest payments or Medicaid expansion or any of the federal issues that can potentially affect counties. We are in close contact and communication with them. They don't dictate our position, but they make sure that we know what's going on.
And I think Paul does a great job of keeping us updated on a weekly basis.
Awesome. I am glad to hear it.
Do either of you have questions?
No, but I don't know how, are you planning on staying for a little bit?
My wife and my son are here. We're going to go have lunch, and then I
Okay.
think we're coming back
Okay,
at
great.
2, right?
Great,
For the
yes.
opening celebration?
Yes, great.
We're
Okay, so
excited.
I'll talk to you then.
No,
Thank you for
I
coming.
really appreciate you coming down. The groups that are part of you, I don't want to call them committees, I'm not sure how you term that. I have contacted numerous times, many on personnel issues and other issues.
Awesome.
Absolutely invaluable assistance, and I appreciate that a lot. And I'm not pissing off, I'm just telling you, you guys have helped out a lot.
I'm really glad. That's what we want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your time.
Good to see you. Absolutely. I will see you right after lunch.
Take care.
2 hours, I don't understand. How about a break? Oh. I'm going to declare about a 10-minute recess, folks. They tell me it's been over 2 hours, and we do need to let our circulation move around, I guess.
Chip, do you like sushi?
Oh.
There's a place in Florence when you go just right up here to where Carl's Jr. is, to the left.
And the next item on the agenda, I believe, and I can't even find my agenda right now, is the small business,
Nope,
Hermit Bridge.
yes.
Okay, let's talk about, come on up, Gary. We're talking about the bridge that goes out of Westcliff. You go west of Westcliff, you drop down across Hermit, across Grape Creek, and that bridge has to be replaced. We've got to do some things, and we've got the folks here to bring us up to date. Welcome again, bud.
Again.
Hello,
Amanda Atencio.
I'm Bob Katnick.
Amanda Atencio. Amanda.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Bob Katnick.
Clay Burleson.
Lee.
Clay.
Clay.
Burleson.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm going to let Gary, if you wouldn't mind, maybe to lead this discussion or bring us where we are.
Okay, well, we had talked a couple of weeks ago at the last meeting about the RFP, request for proposal that was sent out, and Atencio was the engineering firm that expressed interest in that project. So anyway, I thought that I'd have him here today so that we could kind of discuss some of the specifics on that project, costs and things like that. Now, Amanda and I were talking about there's a couple of different ways to go about this. Amanda mentioned project management, where they basically take over the project and the paperwork and legwork for it. They're kind of they'll communicate with CDOT on this project since it's a CDOT grant that we've gotten for that project. Or we could just have them do the design phase of it also. And I was going to ask Brenda, have we gotten that option letter yet from CDOT? Okay. Till we get that option letter, which is a document that allocates or funds for each phase of the project, we really can't. I mean, we can
We can name the design firm,
but we just
but
can't
we
have any.
can't pay for anything.
We can't actually hire them to do
Right.
anything
Yeah.
as far as on the project, the design or anything like that. So we're still waiting on that option letter from the state.
How many?
Can't expend any funds till you have that.
Pardon?
Can't expend any funds till you have that.
Right.
This is the only firm we've had respond.
Yeah.
And where was this advertised?
Do you remember?
Was Pueblo Chieftain and the Sentinel and the Tribune. We were going to do it in Springs, but it was like some outrageous amount of money that they wanted for this. And
So we had it actually one newspaper in Pueblo and then two of our local newspapers then. So,
And I think that was the requirement, that 3 different publications.
and I was contacted by at least one other firm, but I think the size of the project was not worth their while, so they didn't pursue it. They just inquired about it, and that was it.
Ms. Tencia, thank you for the proposal. I read it. I see that you're an engineer, and while I looked at these nice pictures, I have to profess to you that I don't know what they mean. My real question is, of this type of project, has your firm done this many times and several times, or could you give us some background?
Yes, I could. Again, my name's Amanda Atencio, and Atencio Engineering is based out of Colorado City. We've been incorporated as Atencio Engineering for 10 years now. Prior to that, I used to work for other consulting firms in Pueblo as well as in Colorado Springs. Most our work is based off of municipal type work, so we work with a lot of small rural communities like anyone in Huerfano County. We work in the town of Cokedale, we work in Trinidad, we work in Branson, the town of Antonito, the town of La Jara, the town of Holly, all these small rural communities in southern Colorado. That's kind of our specialty. Water, wastewater, bridge, road design, culverts, just from small projects to larger projects. We just pretty much do a whole variety of things, but the majority of our work is all in southern Colorado. We also do a lot of work in Fremont County as well, so we're just mostly all in southern Colorado, but we work with municipal type projects. That's our specialty. That's our main clientele. I would say 90% of our clientele is municipal based. We do a little bit of private stuff here and there when it's requested, because it's mostly by referral that we do small designs for development of just septic systems or small site plans and that kind of stuff. As far as CDOT goes, we've worked with different grants through CDOT. So every grant, depending on if it's just totally state funded or if federal funds have touched that project, the requirements are different. We've worked for, it's a transportation enhancement grant, a safe routes grant. We've also worked with CDOT where we worked in the town of Holly, and they had to review our plans because we were doing borings under Highway 50 with water lines. So we had to make sure we coordinated with CDOT on that permit, and they reviewed our plans. We've installed water mains and water services within CDOT right-of-ways, so they had to review all our plans, and we've coordinated with them on that. We've also worked with Department of Local Affairs on their grant money. So each type of funding requires something a little bit different. So that's why I was asking a little bit more about what kind of funding is touching this project as far as administrative-wise. If it was a DOLA-funded project, piece of cake. CDOT funded, there's a lot more administrative work on that. So that's why I was really wanting to know a little bit more about that aspect of the project. We do work with some private companies where we don't really have to worry about the funding aspect of it, but like I said, the majority of our work is in southern Colorado with small rural communities, so we're used to working with all the different funding agencies, but we just need to know the specifics of what their requirements are for that project, for that type of funding. Exactly.
What services would you be providing then on this bridge replacement?
Well, it just depends on what the county needs. So if you need the project management aspect, if you want us to take it from A to Z, we can do that. If you wanted us to put it out for bid, solicit for the bid, go through that entire process of looking at the different bids that do come in, help you in assessing which one we would make the recommendation on, and then also move forward with construction management. We do that all the time. It just depends on what kind of resources the county has, and we just work with you on from that aspect. So we can do from A to Z, or we can just do the design. and then hand it over, or, just depends on what the county really needs.
I think on this, I wish that I'd have to get with Roger maybe, but my sense is that we have looked at a number of possibilities in there. We were looking at some type of precast structure at one time. We were looking at a liner at another time. I don't know when we looked at a number of different possibilities. And from an engineering standpoint, I'm not an engineer, so bear with me. But I'm assuming that you would say, okay, I'm thinking about it, that you'd say, okay, we have 1, 2, 3 products that could be used. This is a cost. After you identify the product and you come in and someone has to survey the site so that you've got your elevations and stuff for installation.
Right.
And then someone, I would assume, would be checking the compaction as you filled. And then would also then, I would assume, go on to the overlay.
Right.
Is
And
that
those
a
would all-
fair?
That's a fair assessment. The technical specs that we put together would put that all on the contractor. When the contractor gets the project, gets their package, it's going to tell that they're going to be required to do these compaction tests, submit them to us, and then as far as the type of overlay, if it's going to be 3 inches, 4 inches, what type of guardrail is going to be acceptable, the whole bit. We specify the whole thing so that it does coincide with CDOT requirements. As far as construction or design, there are many ways you can rework this bridge. The thing about this is there's some fair amount of water in there. So with having the 3 culverts, it seems like it almost would, cost-wise and efficiency-wise for the contractor, if you were to leave 1 or 2 culverts in service to bypass that water, then they don't have to do as much dewatering. Dewatering is very expensive.
When are we looking at doing this?
Well, it was going to be after the first of the year. That's what I was telling
Spring.
Amanda. Because of the paperwork that's
No,
involved.
but I mean realistically, when are you looking at early spring, March?
Well, it's got to be done in early spring before the water comes up, or else late summer, early fall, like October, for instance.
Because what you see now is the water's going to be going down. And especially if we get into, we have a dry spring, you can walk across a pair of tennis shoes. If we have a dry summer, come fall, there's hardly enough water going through there to maintain the water supply for fish. So it's at that time, I cross that every day. At that time, there's not very much you would have to do in terms of diversion to keep it out of your way.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to have everything done in order to do it this year. It's going to have to be next year.
Well, and I don't think, and from I guess I have 2 concerns. One is that we not do it during high-use periods. In other words, we have enough contractors, we have enough tourists going through now, and ranchers that live out there, residents that live out there, that it is not the most convenient time in terms of the customers in the county to do it. As we get into the early fall, again, and it shouldn't take, I don't think it's going to take a couple of weeks to do it, but we get into a period then where we're shipping cattle and so forth, so we again get some commercial, so
late fall.
priority ranching traffic over, I haven't looked at the contract. What kind of money are we talking about? Did you?
Are you talking about the total project cost?
Or their cost.
No, their cost.
Their cost.
I have it right here.
We did not submit a bottom line dollar figure
They did a rate
because
sheet.
we didn't know
I
what
realize
the
until you get
scope
to
of
specs.
the work was, right? So, yeah, but we did submit our hourly rate fee.
It's probably consistent with most engineering firms, most likely.
I would say we're probably one of the more economical. We have low overhead.
It's
We're
cheaper
small.
than being Colorado City than Colorado Springs.
It is.
The zip code makes a difference.
It sure does.
The audience asked a question.
Pardon me, yeah.
Isn't this on a state highway? Isn't this a CDOT route?
No, it's a county road, it's Hermit Road going west to West Cliff.
Oh, it's not the highway?
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
a county road,
I'm sorry.
but we've got some
I thought
highway,
you were talking about the highway going out of West Cliff.
but we've got some county, state dollars, CDOT dollars to put into the project.
Got it, okay.
And it's an interesting project because half of it is in West Cliff and half of it is in Custer County because Grave Creek is the dividing line.
Okay, got it.
Good question, thanks, Jack.
So we don't have to go through any approval process with West Cliff, the town, or do we?
I think we're gonna have to, to some degree, being it's, help me out, Joe, but that is I understand the boundary line is the middle of the creek.
Well, I
I'd say-
believe that that's already been addressed with the town of West Cliff.
Yeah, I think it has too. And also, even though that's the boundary line, I think our maintenance actually starts east of there by a couple of blocks or whatever.
Well, but isn't that kind of an agreement between the town and,
But once again, I think it's been addressed with them. I think they've just pretty much turned it over to us.
and who
Since
addressed it?
I'm not sure.
Who addressed it?
Yeah, who addressed it, Brenda?
Kit, when he applied for this grant, there was some agreement with the town of West Cliff and someone else to pay a certain amount towards the project.
Oh, really? That 20%?
Well, I mean, it wasn't 20% of the project.
Well, right,
But
Do you
the
recall that,
cost
Jay?
It was
that the county has to incur, that,
right. Because it's an 80-20 grant, right?
yeah, and
Okay.
the town of West Cliff has agreed to pay a portion of it, and then I thought someone else had too.
I'll check with Kit on that and see what I can find
I
out.
had that written down in my office.
It's been quite a while since the town of West Cliff has discussed this, so I may be a little foggy still. But they recognize that it's going to be a joint project. They were in favor of doing the joint project. They're willing to fund their portion of it. I don't know if your firm has been discussed with the town of West Cliff at this point. I just don't know that.
I would be surprised if it has.
Yeah, I would be very surprised, but I didn't want to say no because I don't know for a fact. I think you can count on West Cliff being on board. I would think it would be appropriate if we decided to, in theory, say this is the firm that we would like to use for whatever aspect of this we do. West Cliff has a town meeting Tuesday, and I could certainly bring it up, or someone else could bring it up, but I mean, just ratify with them that they're in concurrence with this, so it's a joint project since it is.
And
Yeah, I'd like to have
I can
something
let
in
you
writing.
know what the town of West Cliff had agreed to, and I'm thinking it was $2,000 or $4,000, I can't remember which, that they were going to contribute towards it.
Yeah, I really don't want to say because I'm not confirmed on that,
Yeah.
but I'll be happy to resurrect this discussion with the mayor and go
But I
back.
can
with-
get you those numbers.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'll, if you like, I'll be happy at the meeting to bring this up, tell them that if we decide that this is our
Well,
company.
I just want to be sure that we've documented what we're doing, that it wasn't a verbal
Right,
agreement.
me too.
And that we get it in writing, there's no hard feelings.
Yep.
And,
Put it in the minutes if they did it, and I'll ask them to put in the minutes whatever we discuss, so that'll be fine.
Okay, well, I think I've got an understanding of what these folks do.
So,
Yep, I mean,
for my own, now, are we asking at this point to, and please help me, Brenda, to say that this is the company we would like to use? We're not sure what phase and in what manner, but we'd like to name them as our consultant or builder or whatever they end up being
it's
for the
design.
county. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Well,
Because we have to do it for the grant, we have to.
I want to visit with Gary, though, because as a past experience, you worked on a lot of bridges and stuff, I think. And do we have the expertise without outside consulting coming in to do it?
As far as the project management,
We'll get it done, yeah, it's a county,
well,
quasi-county project.
Gary,
Being it's CDOT funded, we don't have any option,
Yeah.
or I mean, we don't have a choice but to.
Have a
in-
suggested
hire any-
engineer.
is Jimmy Hasten the project manager?
Well, he is contracted with CDOT as a consultant, basically, on projects like
Yeah,
this.
he's
So-
sort of in charge of the whole thing, but I don't know if he would be a project.
You mean for us right now?
Well-
Or a permit bridge project.
Yeah, he can't be, he's not hired to actually oversee the project for the design phase of it or anything like that.
Okay.
So he's just kind of been a consultant for us.
Because we never had any discussions
gonna say.
in the last 2 years about hiring an outside firm on the bridge.
Yeah. And it has to be done in order to, to get the CDOT
To
grant.
get the grant, you have to hire.
I mean,
Well,
it's-
that's fine, but in
yeah.
terms of what Kit did, it would not, at least as a board member,
Well-
I don't recall that we'd had this discussion of this detail.
Yeah, I just don't think it got to that point yet,
Right.
because it was going to eventually. It's just a mandate that a project engineer, an engineering firm oversees the project.
Almost a
and-
year to just get to this.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we have how many dollars roughly
What?
in the CDOT monies?
108,000, is that right?
Yeah,
I think,
I think it was at least that much.
Yeah.
It might have been a little bit more.
yeah.
Because I think we had it budgeted for the total project. The total budget was like $140,000.
$140,000.
And it's an 80, I think,
20% is,
yeah, it's an 80-20 grant is what it was.
but I thought there was a specific dollar amount that they said.
Yeah, up to that
Yeah.
much. If we spend less, then they just.
If we had $140,000, then we would pay 20% or 28,000 of that. And
Yeah.
the state would pay the rest of it?
Correct, yes.
And
then-
some of that could be in kind, you know, labor.
But
Yeah,
we
just
don't
like
know what
putting
the town of West Cliff's dollar contribution is, so we need clarity on that.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, if we can get
I'll
anything
get
from
that
West Cliff.
information for you.
I think we
Yeah,
need to.
It
I
seemed
know
like
they
there
approved
was
some.
there were two different places that pledged to give money towards it. So
Okay.
one was the town of West Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I can't remember who the other one was.
so as
But
far
I
as a
think-
timeline goes, you're looking for this letter from CDOT?
Yeah, and it's our understanding we were supposed to have an engineering firm chosen by July 4th, and that we'd have that option letter prior to that. But even if we don't have the option letter, that's not on us, that's on
That's on
CDOT.
them,
So
yeah.
we just can't allow
Can't.
Atensio.
Can't.
We can't spend any money with Atensio. We can just designate them as the engineering firm for this project.
For the deadline of July.
I suggest that we table this then until our 30th meeting.
Till you get some more information, or, but this is the only
Well,
firm
we
that
gotta know what the
hasn't
town's
responded.
doing. We
Right.
gotta see what documentation we have
Right.
forth.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's okay. The main reason I had Atensio was here is so they could explain, their history and the projects they've done and things like that. So-
That was really important. I mean,
Yes.
when you said to
Yes.
me, you've been in business 10 years, you've done a lot of CDOT projects. I know a lot of things right off the bat. I'm involved in a CDOT project in West Cliff right now. And I understand CDOT will not allow you to touch anything until you meet their requirements,
Sure.
which will be much higher than ours, I'm
Right.
certain.
Right.
So as soon as you said we've done a lot of CDOT projects, I go, I have no issues here. So
Well,
a few questions left that we need to discuss, but I knew you were qualified, let me put it that way.
And I can get a hold of Jimmy Asen and talk to him
Yeah.
about your firm being the
Sure.
project manager.
Yeah, we just
what his
really
thoughts
need
are.
to know the funding aspect, because then that dictates some of the requirements on the project.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will help us understand what is needed to make sure we meet all those requirements.
And we've got the interlocal agreement. I can actually email that to you. I've got that.
There
And
you
then
go.
you
Okay.
can look that over.
Is that the
and
one, so you've been working with Wendy Pettit up on that aspect of it?
I believe so. I
Okay.
kind of came in at the middle, in the middle of this, so
Yeah.
we've. But the last time I contacted Wendy, she referred me to talk to someone else. Referred me to
Really?
someone
Okay.
else. Yeah.
So maybe we need to find out who that
Well,
is.
Jimmy Hasten is
Yeah,
the
I'm confused about that, because he works for SEH.
Right, yeah.
So,
But he is the CDOT, consultant.
Surprised, okay.
Yeah.
That must be something
I
kinda
think he's
new.
contracted with
CDOT,
CDOT, be a consultant for
really?
them on small projects like this.
Okay.
And I'm like comments from you guys, but my thoughts are that we've got some unknowns here. We think we've got some paper documentation and so forth. And maybe between now and the end of the month, I can get with you, and we can sit down and go through that so we can collectively understand where we are. Would that make sense to you folks?
I have no problem.
That
I
gives
just
you
don't
time
want-
to...
Yeah, I just don't want to miss our July 4th deadline.
Well, I'm not, the point we are right now, Jay, this thing has been kind of going along, and all of a sudden I find out we got a July 4th deadline.
Well,
we saw it.
The two.
And the engineering
And-
firm selected.
Well, and that was our timeline, correct?
Is that one you came
I
up
believe
with?
so, yes, because
Okay.
they asked us to come up with a timeline,
Mhm.
and so that was the timeline, so.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
we've probably got more time than that.
I
Yeah,
bet we
but,
do.
you know, I mean, we would just have to contact Jimmy and say, hey, you know.
Sure.
Well, I'm glad
have it
we've
by
got...
June. I would still like to have it by June
I
30th.
think what CDOT was, they appropriate these funds, and you've got up to 2 years to use them once they've been appropriated. So
Yeah.
as far as,
So
you know, the
once-
project, as long as we have it completed within their deadline, we're okay.
Yeah.
So
Well-
it's just that, you know, there were certain things like the design phase of it and things like that.
I don't feel comfortable making a decision personally today, maybe my colleagues do, but...
No,
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 we
no,
don't
we
have
still need
No,
to do that.
we concur with
Yeah,
you. It's just.
it's fine.
Okay.
But you came a long way in explaining who you are, what you are, how you work was very, very important. So I really appreciate that. I want to thank you
Yeah,
for coming.
thank you guys for having us.
Yep.
Could
Yeah,
you,
appreciate it.
could you maybe, let's see, you mentioned some people, towns you've worked with. You just worked with the town managers on those projects, or
The town managers?
mayor, or who have you worked with? You said you...
It depends on the town. So, well, actually, the town of Antonito, mostly it's the town administrator. The mayor's involved. In the town of Branson, it's the mayor, the water operator, and some of the council members. In the Huerfano County, it would be the administrator that we mostly work with there. In Hawley, it would be the administrator, which they don't have one right now.
That's good. I'd just like to check with a couple of these folks and see what their
Sure,
experiences
we
have been. and stuff, and,
submitted some references in there.
Yeah.
And then,
You got them there? Okay.
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
I
coming.
appreciate what we're doing, and I appreciate where we are here. We're moving forward. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well.
Just to say thank you very much for coming.
No problem.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you.
Nice
Pleasure.
meeting
Look
you.
forward to working with
Pleasure
you.
meeting
Nice
you.
meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
I've got a quick question. We're supposed to have the 4th, Tuesday the 4th, and some of the guys asked me if there was a possibility we were going to work the 3rd, Monday the 3rd, and then have the 4th off. They were wondering if there was a possibility we could switch Friday for Monday. And Friday would be our normal day off if we could work Friday, and then just have Monday off so we could just string the weekend together with the 4th.
You mean because of our holiday schedule that we approved? That's what we're looking at?
Yeah, what it would mean was instead of having Friday off, we would work Friday and then just take Monday off. So we'd have a long weekend.
I think, go ahead first.
I was just going to say, you are their supervisor.
I think as a county process, I mean, you and I think
Yeah.
work those, and, you know, they work at a different schedule than the rest of our county does.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see any problem with the
Beach State
flexibility.
line.
You
work-
just need to,
The same amount of time, and I don't think it's an issue. Yeah.
All right. I'll let them know that.
okay?
Sounds good.
Happy.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
God, is the 4th of July coming up already?
Yes.
Thank you, folks. Be safe. Okay, economic development. I'm sorry, sir. I hope you didn't get a kink in your neck waiting for us.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am?
Wilson?
I'll make this quick. I don't know how long Cindy's going to take, but I'll make mine.
Okay.
Cindy here?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cindy. I didn't see you back there. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, I have on my economic development hat today, and we were contacted by Meredith Marshall at Colorado OEDIT, Office of Economic Development, and
international trade. You may recall Meredith led the team that did the CAP study for us. So she has become fairly familiar with Westcliff and Silver Cliff and the county. And she contacted us because there is a grant available from the Colorado Small Business Development Council. And this grant, she felt like it would fit right in. She knew that we are working with Southern Colorado Small Business Development Council. Carolyn Tranny is the director out of Pueblo. Caroline comes up about once every month to 6 weeks and works with me and Charles with some of the small businesses in Custer County. We have 8 that we have recently worked with. If I can give you just a quick example, we have an entrepreneurial startup business that was having difficulty getting financing. They were trying to buy the building that they were renting. Caroline located some funding that would be available for startup businesses. They requested cash flow projections for the next 2 years, P&L for the current year. The owners had no idea what cash flow projections were, how to do them, or what a P&L is and how to do that. So I've been working with them on a weekly basis, meeting with them on a weekly basis, putting together a loan package that they can present. They also had never written a business plan for their business, so we've been stepping through writing the business plan. So that's kind of an example of what we're doing. This grant that SBDC has come up with actually is a certified small business community. Back up just 1 second. Charles Bogle and I both went through the certification process for SBDC to become certified business consultants. So when we go in, we're representing the state. This would allow us to have actually a satellite office in the county. And what that means, I've highlighted on your copies what that can mean to us. We would be featured on the dedicated SBDC website, providing additional exposure for the county in terms of small business development. Another one, CDOT signage could be put up with the amount of tourism that we have coming through here, to be able to highlight that we accept and are looking for new small businesses to develop. And I think small business is also a key to that. We're not looking for smokestacks, but we're looking for small business that can help sustain our community. And there's also cash involved, $10,000 in coaching, mentoring, and technical assistance. $30,000 to assist in completion of the project, which could include a satellite office. There are no matching funds for this. It's directly from them. We just feel like this is a great opportunity. We're on a very short fuse, so the reason why I'm here today is to request a letter of support from the commission when we file for this grant.
What's your timeline on the letter that you need?
July the 1st. We just learned about this. That's why.
So you're up to $30,000 to assist with a plan, co-working space in the community. So you would have a desk someplace in the chamber or wherever that would be open?
Correct. Right now, Caroline Tranny, when she comes up here, uses the visitor center or the chamber office for an office. This would help support that. Charles and I, I've done more of the actual legwork in terms of working with businesses. There actually is a pay for doing that. what Charles and I have done is we've requested that all of that just be sent directly to economic development. We're not taking any of that personally. So that's another source. And this would help increase that some as well, because it would extend where, in fact, we would go to provide consulting services.
It's great. I commend you for doing what you're doing.
No, thank you. It's mostly fun.
So it doesn't say that we don't have a match, but it doesn't say that we have one.
We do not. No, there is no match. We've been told that. So I'm not here requesting any kind of commitment for a match, just a letter of support.
Well, I'd like to make the motion to support the efforts submitted by Wilson and put a letter of support so that we get that done before July 1.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Jay?
Good plan. I see no downside.
I just like
I
that
see
you're
lots of
helping
upside.
to sustain some of the businesses that are here and that appreciate that you are able to help them be sustainable. So
Well, I
thank you.
think this is a win-win opportunity, regardless of what the outcome may be. I also want to commend you and Charles and everyone else at the council for the efforts you're putting in.
Thank you.
As long as we attract the right kinds of businesses that don't have a heavy environmental footprint, which we're all very cognizant of, this gives us an opportunity to work with those folks. So, having other discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Easy.
So do you want me to draft a letter of support? And then, do you have an example letter of support or
I
any
don't.
wording specifically that you want?
I don't, but I'll work on that today.
See if you and Charles can get something to get to her.
Yeah, we'll get
it
something
signed.
That'd
to
be
you very
great.
quickly. Yeah.
And then we can sign that whenever.
Okay, the next item we have, thank you very much, as usual.
Thank you. Sir?
See you tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Okay, Cindy. And while Cindy's coming forward with her OEM report, we did visit about the, briefly, Cindy, about that health
Our
operation you had.
full-scale statewide public health exercise.
And Donna brought us up to date some on that.
Okay. And one of the questions that came out of that, we used some of that time to just talk theoretically. One of the questions Donna brought up was what happens during that disaster with policyholders. And we started out with a disaster declaration, followed by a delegation of authority to Division of Fire Prevention and Control. For 4 days, we had spending limits. And then the state gave us a
Wonderful.
But that's exactly what
delegation.
we did with the fire.
Right, and so Donna wanted,
Protocols.
I can email those out, but just kind of we went through the protocol of what you would be expecting and/or town council and how important it is to have you available. In that case, Kit signed some, Kit and Bob signed some, but even when Lynn wasn't there, that constant coordination, text messaging, whatever it was going on to pull that sort of emergency meeting together, so.
Another part of this, and I would assume it would apply here, is that we were very cautious each day on the fire that we only signed a $5,000 funding for 1 day. So that
24-hour
it
operation.
couldn't go down and continue to pile up, and all of a sudden we're 100,000 down the road.
Well, and what
And
it
we
kind of
were-
did was if we hit that $5,000 mark, which could have happened easily,
Well, then
that
we'd look
I
again.
have to find you and say, hey, we have a life safety issue, and, so we did talk a little bit
Do you
about
have
that
copies
too.
of this?
In the Beulah Hills fire, I was working resource mobilization in their EOC towards the end of that first week, and my spending limit there was $5,000 per requisition. So, big difference, but, and we were lucky on this fire that it went, you could see Kit sign the disaster deck at like 11:15 or 11 something, and then when we did the delegation of authority, Joe backdated it to 6 a.m. because it's a fill in the blank, and we got lucky because there was an extra 5 hours in there that they backdated all the costs and stuff, and so we didn't have as much as we, potentially could have.
So basically, though, as a summary, this would be handled
Similar process.
almost exactly like the fire was. Instead of a fire, it's a pandemic.
Yep, exactly.
Same thing.
Exactly, and it was a good training and a lot of people there, and we had 28 people. I think we had more people than anybody else probably did. We wouldn't have that many in a real EOC, but it was a training. We had a lot of observers, and then after Donna and the rest of the crew left, we did, Ted gave us he was the evaluator for the state, and he gave us a breakdown hot wash after that, and there'll be a full AAR, and we should see that in August. So.
And we'll get a copy of that.
Yeah, it should be brought. Bethel presented at hopefully the August CES meeting. She'll present that. So.
I just thought you and Beth and Alyssa did a really great job staying on task. I mean, it was neat to see that whole operation, plus the people that were in attendance. I mean, we just worked together. It was great just seeing that energy.
One of your victims came in my store. I told her to sit down. I'm calling 911. I didn't realize it was makeup.
Well,
picking up blood all over.
Oh, really? And Brenda got whacked. As far as injects went, Brenda got the most injects of anybody. In fact, we needed her in a separate room because her phone just kept ringing. I don't know. The media was calling and calling and calling, and she got high marks for.
But it was a very good experience.
It was good. It was essentially our June meeting, and I thought it was great. And Meredith, my intern, she's been helping me with props as part of the grant. We did the storyboard, we did the org chart, we set up the day before, and we're going to use that same model in all hazard. It doesn't matter what the event was, but it was very beneficial for both of us to do that exercise.
So, I don't have a radio, and this is one of the reasons. This is one of the reasons why I've resisted it, but I really think I need one in case communication is down. You can get a hold of two of us if an emergency.
Could you please get him a radio? I'm getting tired of whining.
So Mark Mears.
Get Donna one too.
Oh, no, I have mine.
You guys
and
have
I got
yours.
trained. Yeah.
They went to radio training, and then the one that Jay had didn't work. So the radios that Pueblo County promised us, I picked them up last Tuesday from Jeff. They were a transfer from Mark Mears to Shannon Byerly. I drove them up to Barry Mitchell and Parker Friday and dropped off 25 portables and 10 mobiles. He's tuning them and programming them, and one has your name on it. I think I've got 3 with Road and Bridge, and I'm giving 1 more to Public Health. The rest are going to Shannon's cache. We'll see. I'm programming all the mobiles for law enforcement, and so they'll just kind of be spares. They're the plug-in ones. But you will have one, and hopefully I'm going to be in Denver Friday. I'm doing a Firewise Ready, Set, Go, Train the Trainer Friday morning, and Friday afternoon I'm working in the state EOC with the Salamander program, and hopefully I can pick them up coming home. If not, they should be ready next week. So
Just send me an email.
Okay.
Are you sure you want one though?
Well,
he can turn it off.
Last night, I'm sitting in the chair getting ready to go to bed. Then I heard this ambulance call, and they're told to wait at such and such a point for the deputies. And there was some other chatter going back and forth, and as a result, I ended up sitting up till about 1 o'clock, figuring out what the hell was going on. Not that I needed to know, but just listening to it. So there's some disadvantages.
I don't want to be a fool.
My radio was off last night.
What I want to do is I want to know if communications are down. You need 2 people to sign off on emergency funds.
I need to find you.
I have a radio so that you can be found.
If you see a lot of smoke in the air, turn that radio on. Other than that, leave it off.
That's what I plan on doing.
I have some good news.
Good.
From Joe Lobiondo.
Good.
On June 15th at 1500 hours, the Junkins fire was declared 100% out at 18,762 acres. And on June 16th at 10:45 a.m., the Hayden Pass fire was declared out at 16,662 acres.
Wow.
So we flew the MMA, and then the same time they flew the MMA, they also, Shannon had ordered it to locate a very difficult lightning strike that the MMA from, I think Dave told me today, 20,000 feet, put the firefighters within 25 feet of the burn on the ground, and it was 3 miles south of Hillside and on the west side. So that was when I was in class a couple weeks ago. So he's working to let Division of Fire Prevention and Control know how much they appreciate all their efforts.
I think they actually flew it twice.
Yeah, they may have.
Paul told me when they flew it 10 days ago, so.
Yeah.
And he said, we didn't find any hot spots, but we want to fly it a second time if they'll do it.
Okay.
To
That might have
verify
been
that we had a clean setting, and about the 15th would maybe been the second time.
I was going to say, because I was in class
Wow.
the first time. Joe said they were
Okay,
flying it, so.
what else?
I had a few signal issues tuning my signal booster up there in West Cliff. Clay from CNC Technical Services was there yesterday, and once that T-Mobile tower goes live, we're having problems getting AT&T and Verizon on there, so I had him tune out Verizon so my AT&T would work. I may eventually need to upgrade to a system that'll handle more companies, have more ranges. If that were to happen, then I told Clay that we'd look for somewhere else to put the 10-user booster, like maybe down here, because I've noticed my AT&T's been bouncing around at one bar. So it's, I bought that, and it may not quite fit long term. So, but for now, it's working well. In that conversation, I asked him his thoughts and opinions on some of the communication stuff that Donna and Shannon and Donna and I were talking about, and Chuck, and he's got some ideas. So, so I'm going to hopefully get some contacts from him. He mentioned that they are getting 100 up, 100 down in Steamboat for under $200 a month from the same vendor that our fiber optics vendor can't match. So maybe if we go 12 months with one, it'll put some pressure on the other to get us to where we need to be long term. Other than that, the state decided not to close out my HMPG grant just yet because they determined that they owed me another $647. And Virginia and I knew it was short, and we were thinking, they were just keeping a chunk of the change like they do for a processing fee, but the guy closing it out is putting in for the rest of the money, and so when that all comes out, the total reimbursed will be the $43,750 we expected, and then we got a couple small payments from West Cliff and Silver Cliff, so it'll put us out about $5,000 on the project. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention, because I know you've got that meeting Monday or Tuesday with the Planning Commission, and I'm going to get a final bound copy because I just used the online version, but I just wanted to point out that the number one recommended action for the county in the hazard mitigation plan is to adopt consistent IBC RRC building codes countywide to include both townships. The description of that was towns of Silver Cliff, West Cliff, and Custer County governing boards to adopt revised codes to a common standard and established a shared position for inspections and enforcement via MOUs or IGAs. And that was ranked number one in the county. So it wasn't me, it was the stakeholders that ranked that.
Could I ask you to please either email that to me or email it directly to...
And I think I emailed you all the charts, but I need to get it to Vic. I'll email it again, but I sent you one email saying this is the meat of the document out of the 506 pages.
I remember it, but if you would email it again, I'd like to give it to the Planning Commission just so they have it.
Yeah.
Well, you're giving that one to Vic, aren't you?
This is the one I marked up all over. I'm going to go stop by Staples and see if they'll print and buy me one. Yeah, probably put it on jump drives for them. We'll have to start doing some updates. And then I don't know if they would have time at that meeting, because I'm not, emotionally tied to building codes one way or the other, but my passion is fire mitigation, and I'd really like to get them to see that 60 Minutes video, which is only 13 minutes long, but if you didn't have a chance to see it, it was a really good video, and it just talks about how planning at the local level is so important on fire mitigation, because we can be proactive or not, but then we can be resistant to government, but then we all want the slurry bombers and we want the federal government to step in and pay the $11 million cost for the fire. So I think you know.
We had
So it's an interesting video in that regard, that it just talks about how things go at the local level, but then how the federal government's budget is being.
Donna and I
I
had
sent
a
a
good,
link to it.
had a good visit with the gardener, and we talked about mitigation.
Yeah.
We talked about how we had to have emergency funding to prepare for flooding events like this, and why we had to have some help to recover from the fires. But we really pushed, at least I sense that we pushed pretty hard, that mitigation was key.
You took a lot of pictures.
Forest Service, Dennis primarily said, okay, we have the 3 R's. We have roads, rivers, and ridges. And one of the things that behind the scenes we're talking about is still right now hoping to maybe find some federal monies that we can come along some of the ridges and cut some fire breaks. And like along the Rainbow Trail, they want to widen that to 16 to a chain on each side of the trail. So we have some physical fire breaks across the country, and ridges are in a very valuable place to put them. Often roads and rivers aren't
Yeah,
that.
we had our first kickoff meeting for the Foothills, Sangre Foothills Community Wildfire Protection Plan too, and we had a really good turnout from BLM, Forest Service, all the partners. DFPC couldn't make it, but building on that, and that is actually one of the goals in here too, is to that west side. And then Dave Tonsing told me this morning, on Saturday he's meeting with Eagle Springs Ranch and Gem Mountain. They want to have a talk on CWPPs and mitigation. We're already working on Woods at Buck Mountain, filing 2, and Cuerna Verde. And there's another one on the west side that wants us to meet, and then Tanglewood has invited us out on July 2nd. They have a church service on site there, and it's their HOA meeting, and they have about 120 people. So Dave and I are really pushing the Firewise mitigation, being prepared for evacuation.
The last thing I need from you, are you what's your schedule next couple of days?
I am going to the MOP meeting tomorrow, and then...
That's at 11 in San Isabel?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then Friday, tomorrow afternoon, I'm driving up to Denver. I'm doing the training from 8 to noon, and then I've got an appointment from 1 to 2:30 with Jeremy Utter.
Okay, you're busy. What I need, if we can, just a short timeline synopsis of the contacts and communication and meetings we've had with the Corps of Engineers, and also with the U.S. Geological Survey.
Okay.
So I can document when we've asked for stuff and when they've made remarks to us.
Okay.
Because Senator Gardner is going to try to get something from the top down so we can get some money and get some watering up here on the hill ASAP.
And Ian has pretty much, he hasn't had any funding. He hasn't come back out again. Nothing's going on there. USGS, they pretty much told the state that they were pulling the plug June 2nd unless some funding came from somewhere. The state made a soft commitment of $250,000 for alert
Who's pulling the
notification.
plug?
And USGS, I'm sorry, they pushed their resources somewhere else. We did the Tri-County funding request and waited weeks and weeks and finally got a soft $250K commitment. They're trying to come up with another $250K, and they've moved the next recovery meeting to August 3rd. So in terms of, the monsoons, and I'm still trying to finish up the IAP, but we're really going to be relying on the National Weather Service and Code Red.
Well, the senator brought the issue up, and I pushed it very hard, and I've got to get something to Kathy.
Okay.
And then I think he will pick up the phone personally and make a couple phone calls in D.C.
Okay, I'll get you the contacts, kind of the timeline.
Yeah,
I'll get
that's
you
all I want.
A
Just
simple
what we're working
timeline.
with. We're on a witch hunt. We're
meetings.
just trying to get the wheel
Yeah.
to move.
And the state took an interest in your meeting with Corey Gardner, and Mike Schaub was out. He's in California on a big disaster there, and so his boss that was at our meeting that we went to in April or whenever it was in Denver, he picked up, he asked me for sort of a synopsis on the meeting on Saturday, and I told him, because he had heard that NRCS had funding coming in, and I said, well, so far Rick Romano doesn't know anything about it, so I told him the only thing that we had in was the CDPHE grant, the 319 grant, and that's been in for over a month, and we haven't heard anything.
We have something coming, according to call that Kathy Garcia received last Thursday from NRCS. They said within a couple of weeks they would have some funding available. Now, I don't know what the project is. I don't know if it's equipped. I don't know if it's critical watershed. I don't know what it is, but that was...
Yeah, they mentioned a 2-week period of time.
Okay. And
that
Rick
was-
Romano called me about 5:30 last night, and he said he even checked up with his upper hierarchy, and they had heard of nothing yet. So he's in the loop, and I told him Stephen Bowand may be calling him from the state, because I think they're just curious what transpired, and they're getting ready to,
We,
position themselves regardless. So
we can't continue without something on that hillside.
yeah, no, I agree.
For two reasons. One of them is I'm concerned that we don't have a disaster, and second, I'm concerned about worrying about this gentleman back here every time I see a cloud go over the top of the mountain. I've gotten very good at checking the weather radar and even calling people and say, how much precipitation did we have?
And we have done, we did 2 warnings with Code Red. Things worked really well. I think that part of things are working good, and
Okay,
hope for no rain. Thank you.
anything from you folks?
Great.
Well, we still have another item, not for, I
No.
just.
I mean, for her.
Nothing for me?
I just need to know, I know you're going to get back to me on cleaning the SAR building.
I did talk to Larry Weber yesterday, and he wants to bring it before the board. His thoughts were just to try to figure out an equitable way, like if SAR paid for it. He likes the idea, he just needs to pitch it to the board.
Okay.
And I said, I'm willing to pay maybe a third of it out of my annual budget, and maybe since Posse and Sheriff's Office and the PSAP training, all that goes on there, maybe they pitch in some money.
All right, so I'll just wait to hear from you to put it
Yeah.
on the schedule.
Okay, yeah, their meeting's July
Okay, okay.
2nd. First Wednesday of July, so it might be the 5th. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate your time.
And I want to compliment you and the rest of the crew on how well that
Thank you.
exercise went.
Oh, yeah, it was
Yep, it
good.
was
Those
great.
gals did a great job.
It was good.
Thank you.
Okay, Donna, I believe you had something on the internet provider?
Yep. I would like to make the recommendation after I'm going to call it the Communications Committee met, which did consist of Cindy, Shannon, Chuck, Donna, and myself, that we would like to award CCOM, our broadband internet provider, for this next 12 months. Shannon is in dire straits. And what the committee suggested is, because of the comparison between CenturyLink and Hilltop, and the fact that I mentioned earlier today, that we are assessing all of our telephone lines, that we're probably going to have a significant savings by doing this. And we're going to start with the sheriff's building first with CCOM. And we're going to see how it goes, because this essentially gives him about 17 times more broadband and internet capability. We talked about the courthouse, and we're going to do this stepwise. So he's going to get it first, and we may even have our own tower at the courthouse. So we're going to see if we can use his. If it affects his operations, then we're going to look at having one at the courthouse also. But the significant savings is unbelievable with what we'll be able to do.
To me, the problem we're having, folks, with the sheriff's department, the DA wants all of the stuff sent to them electronically. And then our officers also wear body cameras. We have to upload the body camera footage file on a daily basis. And it's really difficult with the speed that we have available to us now. It's extremely difficult to get all this done electronically. We have to have more speed. And it's really becoming an issue. And we're to the point now that I think we have to really address it. Yes, sir.
What is the speed CCOM going to be?
They're going to do 50 down and 35 up. The other two were 50-50, but the cost is, we can't justify it. So,
What, we had one up there at 100 and 100. Who was that? Do you remember? Is that group out of San Luis Valley?
Yeah. I'm not really here yet.
but I mean, just looking at communications in general. Yeah.
What's the cost?
The cost is $190, or I'm sorry, to the endpoint, it will be a $250 installation fee and $190 a month.
I make a motion that we proceed with retaining CCOM as our primary internet provider.
I'll second the motion.
He seconded.
He seconded, yeah. Do we have any discussion?
All right.
Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Done. Passed.
How long do they estimate it would take?
It'll take 2 weeks. So as soon as, I guess, if you're okay. Bob, I don't know if you want to sign this.
Yeah, I'll
or
sign
me.
it. Anything else? I'm not trying to rush this, but I want to go eat lunch before the open house.
I just I want to discuss something with you all. Colorado Securities is on their way up here right now, and we had this alarm in the elevator. We're not making a connection, and I don't understand. Do we have a provider so that when that
Okay.
elevator calls out, there's somebody
Actually-
answering the phone?
Yep. We got the quote from them.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just mention this to you. Donna, our Human Services and Financial Director, this is a monitoring service that is needed for the fire alarm monitoring, which is $35 a month, and the elevator live voice emergency monitoring. So I've been talking with Mike. He submitted his quote to move forward. This is something we have to have in this building. So it's another security bid.
So hopefully we can get that
Beeping?
alarm to go away today.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I was losing my
No. So this is another one.
Mike's brother
This
is
is, we need
Brian.
a
He wants to
signature.
know, does the county have an IT person?
Yes. His name is Chuck Iapolito.
I think I met him.
Chuck. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, anyway, hopefully he'll get here before you leave and you guys can
Okay.
look that up.
Okay.
What is the status of the wash basin sink going into the mechanical room?
That's a good question.
And
Okay, the tables in the kitchen have been ordered. The ones that were wrong were taken back. The ones that are supposed to be there about 3 weeks out. The mop sink, I don't know how, but it just kind of got put on hold. So I talked with Eric from a plumbing company yesterday, and he was supposed to give us a quote on the amount of pipe it takes to run that thing to the south. Okay? So just the pipe from the mechanical room over to the sewer under the bathroom. And so I said, well, where is that quote? Justin never received it. And he goes, well, I never did it. I said, well, man, we need that. We need to get the mop sink here. And so he's going to get that done. He said yesterday, I'll get it done, I'll get it to Justin. He may have
it's in
Okay.
process.
Um,
Yeah, so we're going.
The only thing I just want to verify, it's not going to go into the sump pump drain that pumps out to the road, is that correct?
Thank you, Cindy.
It's going into the sewer.
Perfect. That's
Okay.
all I was concerned about.
And I have a further question, Jay. I don't know if you
Sure.
had.
I
You
got
want
it.
to talk
I
about this?
haven't- Honestly, I just haven't had a chance
Okay.
to look it over completely, but it's significant.
It is significant, and that's the deficiency log from the commissioning that was done. And I know we have a punch list that we went through with the architect that you're working on, where you conveyed this information at all? Was Whitlock conveyed this?
Is that the mechanical punch list?
This is from the commissioning that was done. Jay, I think you were.
I was here probably about 3 weeks ago.
This was their report. It's 100 pages long. This is the deficiency log.
Have you not seen it?
So, is anybody from Whitlock going to be here this afternoon?
Yes.
I'll pull them aside then. I
Yeah.
think we need to do that.
You know what, I think, I'm not sure, but I think this was done, because I haven't seen this when I was in the...
I just got it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't seen this. I do have the punch
Tom
list,
sent this.
and it's done.
Tom Duke sent this. Okay,
I've
so,
never seen it.
okay. I won't put it away then.
Yeah, no, that'd be good.
Okay.
Make sure Justin should.
Anything else for the board? I'll declare us adjourned then. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Did you get that via?
Tom Duke.
Did he send it to? Can you forward that to me so I can put it in our books?
Wait, Brenda. Let me put it back up.